Hello, everyone. This is episode 4 of the Stronghold podcast. We're coming here from the gym, and I'm with my boy Ali. Ali just came here to Stronghold to visit us.
Yep.
Actually, so you're from Vermont.
Yep.
But you were just training, you were telling me, in TriStar with Faraz Sahabi.
Yes.
What was that like, man? Tell me about that, because he's one of my favorite instructors in the game.
Man, it's insane in there.
Let's pull that thing right up to your face there.
These guys in there are amazing, man. They're amazing at what they do and the way they coach, you know. They just implement it in your head, you know, just get it right in there, you know.
How much time have you spent training there?
I try to go as much as I can. I honestly, sometimes, there's some weeks that I won't be able to make it, you know, just won't be able to afford it, or I would have something in life comes up, you know.
So you're saying it's like a 2-hour drive for you to go from Vermont to Montreal, where TriStar is?
Yes, 2 hours.
2
hours drive. Sometimes I'll do an hour class and then drive back.
So you're doing 4 hours a day if you drive down and back.
Yes.
And you got to cross the border and do all that shit too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you do for good training, though.
Yeah, man, it's worth every minute of it.
But that's what Faraz used to do back in the day, right? When he was still trying to get his black belt, he would go to New York.
Yeah.
So him and George St. Pierre would drive from Montreal all the way down to New York.
Yeah.
Train there for a long weekend and then go back to Montreal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Ali's here visiting us. He's going to help out at Stronghold for a little bit. We were looking for somebody like you who can do a little bit of MMA, who can do some striking, who can help out with kids classes, who can do gi and no gi and all that kind of shit. And you're one of those people that is well-rounded. We were just having a conversation earlier about how we like to do everything. You asked me do you like gi or do you like no gi? I'm like, both, man. I've been doing striking, grappling with the gi, without the gi, all since the very beginning. Yeah. And I think it's important for young martial artists to have an overall martial arts skill set, right? Not just being a specialist is cool, but I like my students to have a well-rounded game that's universal in the gi, universal in no gi, universal with the striking.
For sure. I mean, martial art in general, you're supposed to be seen. You're always gonna have different different styles, different martial artists, you know, and everybody do their thing. So it's you want to be able to learn from another person. So it's I'm always into jiu-jitsu, I get into MMA, you know, I get into all these
Do you do any grappling training with strikes? So do you do any combat jiu-jitsu or just MMA grappling where you're putting on the gloves and actually hitting each other or anything like that?
Actually, at UFAI, we do sometimes open hands.
The bitch slaps, bro.
Oh yeah.
I do that.
Man, I think those are more brutal than a punch.
Well, definitely change your training up.
Yeah,
for sure. We've done it sometimes in my class. Sometimes we'll just fuck around with it and we'll just start palm striking each other in the middle of the match. It makes a huge difference.
For sure, dude. It makes you really want to get out of position if you're in somewhere, you know.
And it teaches you an important lesson. So I just did a private lesson this morning for a husband and wife who've never done any martial arts training. Right, this was their first day. And, if you come for a jiu-jitsu private lesson, a lot of coaches will, they'll have you hip escape, they'll go through the positions. Yeah. But the first thing that I do is explain the guard. So, if you're laying on your back, having your feet on someone's hips, and then the person on top will just try to, slap you, right? Or just trying to throw a light strike to your head, and then you have to push away with your feet. Yep. Right? Just so people understand the importance of the guard. Because then, if I'm on top of you and your feet are on my hips and I try to hit you, you'll just push me away with your legs.
True.
Right? And then you understand, okay, your guard is quite literally your guard. It protects you. Yeah. And then I say, okay, so now I'm going to pass to the side. I put my knee on your belly, or I go to the mount. And now watch when I try to hit you. Now you don't have your feet to push away. So all you can do is push away with your hands or start to block. Yeah. And you quickly start to realize that with strikes, having your guard is so much more important than even it is when you're just doing pure jiu-jitsu. Because all you think about then is protecting your neck, protecting your arm. Yeah. But when you can throw strikes, having the ability to push someone away with your legs is huge.
It changes the whole game.
Changes the game.
Changes the whole game.
So that's one of the things I think that a lot of the modern jiu-jitsu academies lack is the sort of, it's all sporty, which is cool. Jiu-jitsu is cool. I love it, right? Yeah. But I think for absolute beginners, it will illustrate the point of how important your guard is just to do very basic self-defense. I just try to lightly slap your head, and can you block? Can you push me away with your feet? More importantly, can you stand up? Can you get away?
Run
shit
away,
like that.
Whatever. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's either you're compressed, you're close, or you out of that distance. You know, if you're in between, usually you'll get caught in a strike or or a submission or whatever. So,
Did you ever see the Joe Rogan podcast with Eddie Bravo and Hickson Gracie? Did you happen to watch that one?
I saw a little bit of it.
So that one was quite interesting, right? Because
Yeah.
Eddie Bravo does the rubber guard.
Yeah.
And the rubber guard, for those of you that don't know, if I'm laying on my back and you're on top of me between my legs, if I pull your head down and I grab my leg so that my calf is across the back of your shoulders, I can basically hug my leg and it will keep you pinned down on top of me chest to chest.
Yep.
So what that does is it takes away space.
Yes.
So you can't sit up and punch me.
Yes.
And so I think what you're trying to say is, like, if you're on the ground and you're really, really tight, it makes it so people can't posture up and punch you.
Yeah.
But conversely, if you're sitting back further, I want my feet to be on your hips for the same reason, so I can push you away.
Back. Yeah.
But anything in between that area, if I'm not hugging you or I'm not pushing you away,
you'll get caught.
you're in danger
you're
to
in
be
danger.
striking, to be struck.
For sure.
And then I remember in that podcast, they were talking to Hickson about how he likes to play his guard.
Yeah.
And he was explaining he always likes feet on the hips because he doesn't want anybody to be close enough to punch him.
Yeah.
And then Eddie was saying, well, what if I get you in the mission control? And he showed that position that I just described earlier.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I see, you can't hit me here. And of course, they're both right.
Yeah.
Right? It's just
Yeah.
that in-between zone where you're trying to posture up, where you can push, and then when you're tight, where you're really in danger.
Yeah.
So it's one of those interesting things where you see the old school, like feet on the hips guard, and then the new school like really tight in the rubber guard.
Yeah.
And then, but they're both right. Like both of those
True.
positions are defensively sound. It's in between where you get caught and you're in danger.
Yeah, yeah. Two legendaries, man. Like, it's crazy. And it's like, I feel like jiu-jitsu is just always going to evolve. You know, like you're saying, like new school, old school, you know, I feel like in the next, a few years, it's just going to like, something else is going to pop up.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to like, they went through like the leg lock phase too, you know. That's
When you were at TriStar, were they doing a lot of heel hooks and a lot of, because I know Faraz loves that shit. Were you doing a lot of no gi or just the gi stuff?
I actually haven't done any gi there at all.
You just do no gi?
Just no gi. I try to go to the sparring as much as I can.
Right next to your face,
Just
bro.
a little bit.
Yeah, cheers.
Is that good?
Yeah, good. Yeah, that's it. Cheers.
I try to go like for the sparring as well in there, and man, the guys in there are phenomenal. Man.
High level, right?
High level.
How many people
I
are on the
love it.
mats?
Honestly, I would estimate about like 30.
Yeah, so every class is pretty
25,
packed.
it's about that range.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you're like me. You're a four-stripe brown belt. How long have you been training?
I've been training for about 8 years now, I would say.
And you've always cross-trained from the beginning? You did some striking and some grappling, or when you started?
Oh, yeah. Well, I started out with MMA, and I got into jiu-jitsu. At first, I was like, what is this? Just another man humping another man.
Was that your first martial art?
MMA.
Yeah, so you just started from the beginning, MMA?
Yeah, when I was young, I did kickboxing, but I was like young. I wasn't really like thinking of anything. I was just doing it for whatever. But and then I got into MMA, and a teacher actually saw me, and he was like, "Man, you really love that boxing stuff and all that stuff, And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, he introduced me to the gym at UFAI in Vermont, and shout out to UFAI. And they just like, I fell in love with it, man. Like first time stepping into a mat in a jiu-jitsu class, and then getting caught, and you're just like, holy fuck.
It's like
Shit.
a superpower, right?
Yeah, it's like, damn, you could do this thing to like, it's and at the time I actually had somebody, almost like my size, and usually like you actually notice that when people come into new gyms, they actually try to like size up people.
Oh yeah, immediately.
It's like,
Yeah.
that. So it's like, I walked in and I was just like, man, this wrestling thing, people are just like wrestling. You really think it works, But then when I got into it, and I was like, holy fuck.
Oh, it works.
Man, this
and you're
thing
probably
works.
one of the smaller people in the U.S. too.
Yeah,
Because, the U.S., they tend to grow them a bit bigger. Hey, like you're in Singapore, you're a pretty average size. Like for me, I guess you and I are slightly bigger. We're in Singapore, so for the locals here, we're slightly bigger than average. But you get back to the U.S., there's some big boys there.
Oh, yeah.
So you're probably one of the smaller people in the gym, which is always good for getting like good technical jiu-jitsu,
for sure, man. For smaller people and like even bigger people, technique is everything, man.
Technique is king, right?
Technique is key.
But that's the thing, though. When you're big, you can use you can muscle out of some positions.
Yeah.
You can use your strength in positions that if you're small, you
For
just
sure.
can't. So you can't overcompensate with strength, with any sort of brute force. You're forced to rely on just your technique, which is why I think small people tend to always have the slickest jiu-jitsu. They can't rely on any of those physical gifts. They just got to get it done with pure technique.
Yeah. The smaller, I feel like the smaller the person is, the faster, the quicker,
the movement's a lot more efficient, the way they move the body.
Exactly. I have a friend of mine, Ricky. We go to TriStar together. We meet up and we'll just go. And Ricky's just smaller than me, like 10 pounds smaller, which is like 5 kilo.
Yeah, something like that.
And Ricky's just like that, man. It's insane. Like his jiu-jitsu is insane, And like I was saying, like the smaller you are, the quicker and more efficient, like you said, It's just crazy,
Yeah, I always feel bad for my wife. She's like 50 kilos.
Yeah.
She's like 105, 110 pounds, something like that.
Yeah.
So when she comes in here, she's just always getting squished.
Yeah.
But I know down the line that is just going to turn into a level of technique that's so efficient that if you extrapolate those skills for a larger person, the level of technique is in the skill level is pretty clear.
Yeah,
it's clearly different. Like when you're small like that, you just can't cheat at all.
No.
You can't bully your way out of shit.
No, you can't.
You're used to getting pinned down and just suffering from the bottom in terrible positions.
yeah.
So they tend to be very tough, very scrappy,
Yeah.
like hard to tap out. And just like Charmaine, she's just squirrely as fuck. Like,
I was watching the other
dude, she's
day.
like
I
a
was
spider
like,
monkey, bro. When she starts training, like she's fucking moving around, jumping around and climbing on your back, and you're just like, what the fuck is going on?
What is happening, yo?
Because she has no other physical skill sets like that to get around. So all she can do is hustle and use good technique.
Yeah. Like usually like you see bigger guys, they think it's I've seen it too where bigger guys try to use their muscle, and all that, and usually like smaller guys would use that against them, and like how do I say this? Like bigger guys tend to like rely a lot of times on their strength, but when they start
athleticism.
Yeah. But when you see a smaller guys just flooring this big dude, makes you wonder, man. This jiu-jitsu stuff.
Well, then
it's like the magic
strength,
touch,
right?
Yeah.
Well, it's again the perfect thing that I do with my wife. When we lived in Malaysia, when we were instructors at Clinch, I said this in the last podcast. If we ever got like a bro dude that came in, like some 18-year-old, 19-year-old that wanted to come in and fight and act like, and just came in with an ego, it's like, okay, just roll with my wife.
Yeah.
She's a 50 kg girl, and when she taps you out, it's going to make you reevaluate your life.
Yeah.
It's going to make you reevaluate everything. It'll
humble you quick.
Yeah, and that's because you see that if she can tap you, it's not about strength. It's not about athleticism. I mean, even if you're a white belt guy going against like a small purple belt girl or something like that, you might be able to muscle certain positions.
Yes.
But on a long enough time, she'll get you, right? Just give it enough time. You might be really strong, put her in a headlock for like 2 minutes or something, but eventually your arms are going to gash. She's going to sneak out to your back, and pretty soon she's going to be on your neck. And, and then you'll quickly realize that, okay, if she can do it, anybody can do it.
That's true.
And which is why I think it's important for women to train just in general.
Yeah.
Because if you see other women doing that to people, you quickly realize, like I say, it's like a superpower.
Yeah.
And if it's so empowering for women, right? We just did this women's self-defense seminar, and I think you saw a bit of the end of it there.
I saw that, yeah.
Right?
I saw the face just glow up,
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things because if you're a woman and you're thinking about training jiu-jitsu, it's a bit weird, right? Because it's very physical. You're sweating on each other. You're like sweating in each other's mouth and eyes, and it gets
a little uncomfortable.
It gets gross and shit, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're averse to sort of physical close contact to that, like that, it can look a little intimidating.
Yeah.
But one of the important things that I wanted to stress in the women's self-defense seminar is that the training is fun.
Yeah.
First of all, it's fun. Yeah. If you're not having fun, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
There's no point in coming here. Like, nobody wants to come train jiu-jitsu on their off time if they have kids and a family and another job if the training's not fun.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing is like, look, if you come and do this, it's not probably what you think of it is in your head. It's just a good time.
Yeah.
And then the second bit is the empowerment that you get from the training.
True.
You see, like, if you choke somebody, what it feels like to have somebody on your neck. I taught a triangle choke. You choke somebody with your legs from your back. Same thing. If I'm trying to punch you from the top, push away with the feet, stand up, get away, and go get help.
Yep.
And that was sort of the thing that I was stressing for the women's self-defense seminar. And if you are a woman and you're thinking about training, it is fun.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And
For
the second
sure.
thing is it's empowering.
Yeah.
Once you get a year and a half in, and you're a young, small, or even old woman, and you tap out your first guy,
Yeah.
that's a feeling of satisfaction.
Oh man, you're hooked.
Yeah.
That's it.
There's not many things that can give you the satisfaction of a woman defeating a man in a physical martial arts contest.
Yeah, man.
And
Yeah.
if you stick around and you do jiu-jitsu long enough, I promise you, ladies, you'll get there.
Oh yeah.
And there's nothing
Oh,
quite as
yeah.
empowering as that, right?
Yeah.
I
That's
see
true.
it. I see the girls the first time they tap out the guys, and you see this look on their face
Oh,
where
man.
they're trying not to like say anything, right? But you see,
But you could just tell.
you see this little,
Yeah.
they don't want to like express. It's like fuck yeah, got it. And it's just like this little flicker in their eyes, and I look over and I'm like, yeah, I see,
Yeah.
I saw that. Good for you, man.
Yeah, man, it's always interesting. It's always really fun and interesting, you know, especially like you always see like you see that on newer people, you know, come in and like you're saying, you see the face expression or like, you know, you could feel the vibe just change, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I just got my first person tapped
Or,
out, you know, or whatever.
Here's another big one. Do you remember the first time you like tapped out your coach, or tapped out one of your coaches, or a senior, a black belt, or something like that, a senior rank? Have you gotten to that phase yet with your coaches?
Yes.
Occasionally get a tap or a sweep or something like that on your coach?
Yeah, like you'll get something and it's just like, man, but at the same time, sometimes it's like, man, I don't know if he's gonna turn it up on me.
Oh yeah, no. Make no mistake, you will get punished for it.
Oh,
as soon as you
man.
catch your coach in a
Oh,
submission
man.
or something,
Yeah.
they all of a sudden, right when it happens, they realize, oh,
That's
okay, you want to
it.
play this game? All right,
That's
let's
it.
do it.
That's
So you'll
it.
get the tap, you'll enjoy it for like 10 seconds, then you got to get ready for the onslaught that's coming your way
Yeah,
as
dude.
soon as you do it.
Oh yeah. Well, I went to Thailand 2014, and I was like 2 weeks in there, and they were sparring, you know, and I'm watching this dude. There's this guy named Robo Rob. That's what they call him, and he's one of the Thai trainers over there, and he was just smashing on this dude the dude fell in the bushes. And he's literally like after him.
Still
He's,
hitting
like,
him. The Thais will do that, dude.
Dude, and I'm like standing there, I'm sparring next, you know, and I'm just like standing there like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
Oh fuck.
The
So
Thais
it
get a
comes
little crazy.
yeah, it comes to my turn, man, and like, you know, I was like, oh man, I'm doing good. And then he just switches it up on me and gets me in the knee. I just hit the floor. I was like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
That's it, man. That's it.
Well, I was one of the things that we were sort of talking about, a bit of toxic jiu-jitsu culture.
Yeah.
One of the things that I saw one time, and I'm not a fan of this, is it was the same sort of situation, right? We were at a training session, and one of the blue belts at an old gym that I worked out had managed to tap out one of the black belts. Caught him in like a foot lock, an ankle lock,
Yeah,
or something
yeah.
like that. Pretty rare for the
Yeah.
blue belts to catch the black belts, but listen.
it happens.
It happens.
It
right?
happens,
It happens to everybody.
It happens.
And but this is again, I was talking about some red flags in the last episode. This is one of those red flags where you got to be careful who you
listen to
train
that.
with, because what happened was this blue belt caught him in a foot lock and then tapped him out. And right away, I see this coach's eyes. He just gets angry, super competitive.
Yeah, he wants to show us
He
up
wants to
now.
show what's up,
Yeah,
right? And he
yeah.
got caught with like a foot lock from the single leg X,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So right away, the next match, they slap hands, they fist bump, they go back again. The instructor immediately pulls the 50-50 because he's like, oh, cool. You want to play foot locks? Let's play foot
You want
locks.
to play this game?
Blue belt catches him again. Same shit
Oh.
inside the 50-50 because this is one of his best moves.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
and
yeah.
if you're not going to give respect where respect's due because that person's wearing a blue belt,
Yeah.
even though maybe they have a brown belt or a black belt level move,
Yeah.
one move,
Yeah.
like an ankle lock or something that's really high level.
Yeah.
Did the same thing, went in there, went ape shit. He's like, okay, you want to play that game? Boom, got ankle locked again.
Yeah.
Second time, and like this happened in 1 minute, right?
Man.
Tapped out twice by
Oh,
a blue belt.
man.
And then after that, I'm rolling at the side, right? And all I hear is, "Rah!" and I'm like, fuck. I turn around and I look, and I thought he was like severely
something.
injured or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
right? And then he screams because he's
Just because
pissed,
he tapped.
gets out, leaves the gym, throws a fucking temper
Oh.
tantrum, right? Just gets out, leaves the gym, and then I'm looking around and I'm like, oh, what happened? And they're like, oh, he just tapped him out. And I'm in my head, I laugh because I'm like, dude, are you kidding? You're freaking out because you got tapped out
Oh.
by a student?
Yeah.
And here's why it's toxic, right?
Yeah.
Because first of all, if you tap out one of your coaches, you've trained for years.
Yeah.
Years to get to that point
Yeah.
where you tap out one of your coaches. It's a moment, the first time you tap out a black belt, it's something you never forget,
No,
right?
no.
And to freak out
implanted.
over your ego
Yep.
because you get tapped out in that situation, and to rob your student of that moment
Yeah.
because you're having a fucking fit
just
because
wrong.
you lost is wrong. You're
That's just
you're
wrong.
robbing your student who you've been
Yeah.
training years
Yeah.
of this beautiful moment where
You're
you get to
trying
tap
get
out
him
your
where
coach.
you want to get him to
That's
that
what
level.
you're training him to do.
Yes, yeah.
And then to just steal that moment from him just so
Yeah.
you can freak out and wallow in your own self-pity and
that's-
your own ego.
That's gonna, scar that person that got him, It's gonna
It just makes you question, right? Like,
yeah.
why?
What just happened? Like,
It almost makes that person feel guilty. It's like,
That's
dude,
what I'm saying,
what did I
like,
do?
scar,
Like, all I did was just try to do it.
Yeah.
And then you see one of those things, and that's sort of the ego taking
Yeah.
over a bit, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
Listen, man, I've had one time. I had this story. Shout out to Daniel if you're watching this podcast. I had this student called Daniel, and we were at the big trifecta over there. And I remember we were doing specific training, right? And I started on his back, and so it's a specific training. I started on his back or whatever, I started on his back, and then he did that thing where I had both my hooks in. He just dove on a toe hold from when I was on his back, right? He just reached, picked my ankle, rolled over, and started
went for
diving
it.
on a toe hold. We just went for it, right?
Yeah.
And tapped me out.
Yeah.
And then I remember we had this Japanese guy in the class called Katz.
Yep.
And the Japanese are they appeal to authority a lot. They respect the hierarchy
Yeah, yeah.
and the higher belts and all that kind of shit. And he comes over to me and he goes, "Oh, it's okay," because he did a toe hold to me, and he's a blue belt, and
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
not supposed to toe hold, but I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, yeah.
I let my white belts heel hook each other, right?
Yeah.
And he comes over and he kind of like making excuses for me, right?
Yeah.
He comes over and he's like, "Oh, it's okay," he's not supposed to do that, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, man, don't take that away from him.
Yeah,
He
no,
tapped me
no,
out.
don't.
Good for him.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
don't take it away from me. Like, just let him have that moment. Like,
Yeah.
he tapped the coach.
Yeah.
Like, so even though, your ego gets a little bruised or something, like, guys, if you get tapped out by someone lower than you, congratulate them.
Yeah.
And then if you want to turn it on and you want to
Yeah.
bring the fucking heat, then bring
Yeah.
the heat.
Yeah.
But in that moment,
Yeah.
give it to them.
Yeah.
And then if you
don't
want to
let your
take it
ego
back,
take over, man.
yeah. If
Don't
you
let
want
your
it to
ego-
take over in the next roll, after you slap hands, fist bump, and then you want to fucking bring the thunder, go ahead.
Yeah.
But in that moment, when you get caught, if it happens, just let your students have that moment. Don't rob it from them by just
It happens
getting
to
in
the
your own
best,
ego.
man. It happens to the best. It's one of those things, like it's like an everyday life situation, Things are just gonna probably go wrong or whatever, So it shouldn't, don't let your ego take over, Just let it happen, and
Should we keep going? Or okay, we'll just keep on going. Just talk nice and loud. We got a fucking dude mowing the lawn
Also,
over
I'm
there.
about to scream.
Leaf blowing.
But like I was saying, man, don't let your ego take over, man. You're like jiu-jitsu and martial art in general. You're supposed to let your ego outside the door, before you step in. That's all. What about martial arts? Don't matter who tapped you out, if it's a blue belt or a white belt, or a black belt. Just use it as a good thing. Oh man, now I know what to work on. I admit, there's some times where if I don't feel comfortable, I'll tap. It's not a competition.
Yeah.
I'm here to learn, And if like a coach doesn't teach you that, then I don't know what the fuck they're teaching you, man.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
this is the thing. Like, they always say that about jiu-jitsu. They always talk about, like,
The ego and
yeah,
all
you
that.
lose your
Just leave
ego.
it.
Listen, you don't always,
No,
right?
no.
People still have that shit. And you
Yeah.
can see people that have been training for years that still have that shit.
Yeah.
That won't relax, that won't
No.
chill out in certain positions. They'll go ape shit no matter what with certain people. So jiu-jitsu, in a certain sense, does filter a lot of those people out.
Yeah.
But a lot of them, it doesn't. You'll still just get that ego that never goes away.
Yeah.
And you see it a lot with how people train. Like, are they relaxed? Let's
Yeah.
say a purple belt's rolling with a white belt or something like that. Does the purple belt let the white belt work?
Yeah.
Will they let him pass the guard sometimes?
Yeah.
Will they let him put themselves in bad position to work some submission defense? Like, when a level disparity exists, you need to give and take a little
Yeah,
bit more,
you have
right?
to, man.
If I just go in there with a blue belt and I tap him like 8 times in one roll, what am I doing? Right?
Yeah.
Like, what's the point of that?
Yeah.
Like, I gotta let them work a little bit because
Yeah.
it's not fun. One of the things that Faraz said in the Joe Rogan podcast, which is awesome that you train with him because he's one of my favorite coaches.
Man, honestly, it's like an honor.
Yeah, I mean, you got one of the best in the world.
Oh man,
He said,
I love for us, man.
he talks about one of the things that I think is the most important thing for a martial arts gym, which is... Go
Even
ahead.
though I don't talk as much, because I know like it's a gym, I'm supposed to go there and just train. You know, usually it's just a high coach, and that's about it. You know, but like it's an honor. You know, just the fact like, you know, I was going there and sorry to cut you off, bro.
No, go ahead, keep going.
But like just the fact that he like, you know, he was like, you're like doing good, you know, like encouragement and all that, just boosted my like motivated me, you know, just I want to be better now. I want to, because I was at a moment in my life where I was just like, man, I'm to a point where like it's been 7 years, 8 years, and I'm like, man, I don't see like, I don't know what if there's gonna be any money in this or this and that. I'm leaving like all like literally like I've quit jobs
Keep going.
for this, you know. I've quit jobs. I've you know, so. But yeah, oh, you're good, bro. But
Yeah, well, if you're looking for money, it may not be the
No,
best career
man.
path, but there
No.
could be money in it down the road.
yeah,
You just have to keep sticking to it. It takes a long time to build. I mean, you
Oh,
know,
yeah,
it takes
for
10
sure.
years just to even
For
get to
sure,
your
man.
black belt. So
For
you imagine
sure.
the amount of shit you got to eat in 10 years to get to the
Yeah,
point where
man.
you're
Usually,
making
like,
money and stuff.
Usually, like the first few years in your jiu-jitsu journey, you're gonna get discouraged. You're gonna have people like going ham on you. You're just gonna be like this
You're going
toy.
to be spazzy.
Yeah, you're gonna
and-
be all that, you know. But down the line, you like there's some time where you're just gonna sit back and you start realizing, oh, this is how this works. This is how this works, and it starts making sense, you know. But like I was saying, man, like you were saying, like for us, you were saying something in a broadcast, man.
Yeah, well, so it was
Yeah.
one of the things that I think about for us that he's totally right on is he talks a lot about the ideal level of difficulty.
Yeah.
Right? There's this ideal level of difficulty that you want to hit in every training session.
Yep.
If it's too easy, you'll get bored.
Yes.
If it's too hard, you'll get discouraged.
True.
There's this point where there's the perfect amount of difficulty where, one, you can still get into the flow state, right?
Yep.
Because jiu-jitsu, ultimately, in the end, you want to be in the flow state.
Flow.
If the workout is too hard, it'll take you out of flow.
Yes.
If you're getting fucked up in the roll, it's going to take you out of flow.
Oh, yeah.
There needs to be a certain
Happy medium.
certain happy medium that will get you in the flow state.
Yeah.
If you can get into the flow state, a lot of people will keep training.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he talks about is that perfect level of difficulty. And I try to get my students to get each other into that flow state. That's my goal with the
Yeah.
training.
Yeah.
And so, for example, if you're rolling and two people are about the same level, then you can just kind of go hard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But once you add striking or wrestling, then you have to let each other work a little bit. So, for
You
example,
have to, man.
if I'm doing Muay Thai
Yeah.
with a beginner, even if it's somebody who's done like 2 or 3 years of training, and I'm just fucking them up, right? I'm just touching them up and touching them
Yeah,
up. I just
yeah,
keep
yeah.
touching them. I keep touching them. It's not going to be fun for them.
No.
Because there needs to be a little give and take.
Yeah.
If I hit you a little bit and then I let you hit me back, and we can kind of get these skirmishes flowing back and forth, by the end of that round, you're going to be pumped up. You're going to be ready to pump your chest and go again.
Yeah.
But if you're just like nervous and
Yeah.
this anxiety is in there because the difficulty level's too high and you're getting kicked and you're getting punched, you're going to hesitate to punch back and you're just going to get locked up in this shell.
Yeah.
You'll never hit the flow state. And
Yeah,
then by
no.
the end of the training session, you're just going to be like, dude, fuck this.
Yeah. I ain't coming back.
Yeah. So from a coaching perspective,
Yeah.
if you can get all of your students to acknowledge the fact that they need to give and take.
Yeah.
Think of MMA, right?
Yep.
If we're doing just jiu-jitsu and you mount me, you can mount me and I can spend 3 or 4 minutes in your mount while you're trying to work submissions. That's
Yep.
totally normal.
Yeah.
But if we're doing MMA and I mount you and I just start punching you from the mount and I keep punching you from the mount for 3 minutes, I don't let you work out. I don't let you work and escape. I'm just going to block you from turning your back and punch you. Block you. And for 3 minutes, by the end of it, you're going to be like, dude, fuck off. I'm not gaining anything from this.
Yeah, you're not letting me work.
Yes.
You're not letting me work.
So when you're in that situation, if you're only trying to win, it's going to ruin the training for your training partners.
Yeah.
So you have to. I tell my students especially with the striking, try to win about 50% of the time.
Yeah.
If you're the most experienced person in the class, you're in control.
Yep.
And it's your job to work
And
hit
let
your
other
stuff,
work.
but let them work. Work
Yeah.
your submission defense. Let them get your arm. Can you
Yeah.
get out?
Yeah.
Let them take your neck. Let them wrap one arm under the
Yeah.
chin. Can you
Yeah.
peel that second hand
Yeah,
and
be in
defend?
an uncomfortable position, man.
Like
That's
if you
all
can't
about
let
it,
a blue
man.
belt take your arm and
Yeah.
try to escape, if you can't escape from there, then
Yeah.
you need to work your fucking armbar escapes
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I try to stress to everybody, maximum level. Everybody wants to hit the flow state.
Yeah.
If we can do that, your students will keep coming back.
Yeah.
And that's how you'll sign them long term, and they will see what it could eventually turn into one day. But if they just come in and they're getting smashed, like, they're not
Yeah.
going to want to come back.
Like you were saying, like you want to find that happy medium, or like Faraz was saying as well, you want to find that happy medium. You know, like me, like when I always try, like whenever I try to roll and find like if it's a newer belt, you know, I try to put myself in a bad position, you know, or actually I did this yesterday. I rolled with one of the white belts, and I kept doing the berimbolo.
With Joey, right? The
Yeah,
girl?
just the same roll, and because she kept turning,
Yeah.
so I just kept doing it again. I just wanted to like implement it in her head,
Just
like,
so she can see. Like,
exactly. That's why after class she came up. She's like, "You kept doing that thing, you know." So I told her about it, and I was like, "You kept turning, you know. That's why I kept doing it, you know." But yeah, like if I'm rolling with somebody that's new, or like not at my level, I always like try to give and take, because what's the point of it? I'm just, you know, I'm not gonna sit here and try to take out on somebody new.
Yeah, exactly. And flex that ego.
I just beat you, you know?
Yeah.
No, it just doesn't work like that, you
Yeah,
know?
especially when you're coaching at a gym. Like
Exactly.
when you're coaching, you just can't
Exactly.
you can't have that shit.
Yeah,
flare
you're
up.
just gonna kill the business pretty much, I would say, you know, or like pretty much you're just gonna look like an asshole,
Yeah.
you know?
And your students can sniff that shit out, man.
Oh yeah, man.
And so you'll see a lot of that, sort of the coaches that don't that won't let their students work, or they won't foster that sort of environment. And then you'll get the reverse sometimes, is where you'll get the coach that will stop training.
Yeah.
Because there's either their students are getting experience, new people are coming in, they don't want to lose,
Yeah.
they don't want to get tapped out, so they kind of quit rolling, or they'll only roll with certain people, only roll with like the lower belts and stuff. You'll see this one too, occasionally.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I see it because you travel and go to gyms, other gyms, right?
Yeah.
When you travel and you go, what percentage of the places that you go to do the coaches always roll with you when you turn up? Is it often or is it rare? Like you go to a new gym and you see the coach, whoever it is. How often does the coach roll with you the first day?
Not very often.
Not very often,
Not
right?
very
I do it
often.
always.
Yeah.
Always. I don't
Yeah.
care if you're a black belt, purple belt, blue belt.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're
Yeah.
better than me. I don't care if you're wearing a blue belt and you're better
Yeah.
than me.
You're at my house, man.
Yeah, like if you walk in, I'm rolling with you.
Yeah.
But I see this too all the time. Like if I go to another gym, the coaches won't roll with me. They'll put other people to roll,
Yeah.
because I think they don't want it to be a competitive role. And listen,
Yeah.
there's a lot of coaches that can beat me, and there's some coaches that I can beat, and you
Yeah.
just don't know
Yeah.
until you go. But if a high belt rolls up to my gym, they're getting a roll with me. Even if they're better than me, if I lose in front of my students, like, dude, this
Yeah.
is still where I
There's
work. This
jiu-jitsu,
is still
man.
like I'm still here. Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna fucking die.
Yeah.
But I always see that. I go to other gyms, and then I'm like, dude, if a high level person comes in the gym, I want to train with the coach. So
Yeah.
there will be like a bunch of 10 blue belts, like maybe one purple belt and a bunch of white belts.
Yep.
And then the coach will roll with all the white belts and then put me with the blue belts or something. And I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, come on, man, give me a roll. Like, I want to
Just
train
give me a
with
little
you.
bit.
Really rare that you
Yeah.
actually go and then the
That's
coaches
true.
will roll with you.
Yeah, there's actually I've gone to schools where it's not just that as well. It's they would try to send a higher belt, go twist them up or something.
Oh, yeah.
I've
The mat
had that.
enforcer.
Yeah, man.
I don't mind
it's-
that. I think that's okay. Like if you get to roll with a high level student,
Yeah.
as long as they're cool.
Yeah.
I mean, if again this ego thing that comes out and they're just trying to be an asshole, then
Yeah.
that's a problem. But if
Yeah.
like the instructor wants to send me their highest level guy to roll with, like that's
Yeah.
cool, man. I don't got a problem with that.
Yeah, yeah.
As long as he's cool.
Yeah, but like
She's cool.
if you're like you were saying, you come to my house, my gym, you like that's like you don't see that very often where a coach, would go and roll. I don't know if it's like a ego thing or if it's like they're worried or
I think it's usually they're worried about how they'll be seen
looking
during the roll if their
Yeah,
students are
yeah,
watching and stuff like that.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, that's true.
And another thing that Faraz talks about that I really, really like a lot, because I try to train every day, man. Like I'm
Yeah.
30 now. I still got plenty of time to do this thing, and I'm still trying to improve my skill set. And he talks a lot about you should never redline your training. Like very rarely should you be going 100% in your training. And
Yeah.
you'll see this a lot with white belts and beginners. Is like every time they roll, they do specific training. They're gonna go ape shit until they're
Yeah.
fucking dead, and then they're gonna
Yeah.
be just susceptible to all these submissions and everything like that. I'm always trying to stay between like 60 and 70%.
Yeah.
Occasionally I'll spike it to like 80 or 90 if I'm rolling with a high level student. I get stuck in a bad spot.
Yeah.
But like it's just not sustainable to train long term if you're going ape shit all the time. Not if you want to train 6 days a week, 5 days a week.
Yeah, you won't have the energy.
Yeah,
I don't care how big you are,
Mm-hmm.
all that. You're not gonna have the energy to roll that much.
You need to
if
be
you're
relaxed.
going hard the whole time.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it's even you. You're injured, right? You have this
I got
wrist
my
injury.
little wrist injury. I broke that wrist before, but sort of injured it
But
again.
you trained yesterday, and it's one of
Yeah.
those things like you chill out. You put, even if you're going like roughly one hit, you keep your injured
Yeah.
spot out of bad position.
Yeah.
You let
Keep
people
it
work
out.
around you, and you
Yeah.
play the game that you can play when you're injured. And it's
Yeah.
like that too. Listen, if you're going ape shit, if you're doing hard wrestling or hard jujitsu 100%, maybe once a week, you can get in there and redline it like 100% for
Yeah.
1 or 2 really competitive rules that you have. Most of the time, you need to be chilling out. 60, 70%. If your techniques don't work when you're relaxed, they're probably not going to work when you're going ape shit
No.
most of the time.
No. That's absolutely right, though.
And
That
that's
is
how you
absolutely
train
right.
long term. That's how you train multiple times a week
Yeah.
over a period of 10 years.
Yeah.
Because if you think you're just going to go ape shit for 10 years, listen, that
It's
ship will sail.
It's not gonna take long.
You're
man.
going to get hurt.
I've actually seen it. Like I've seen this when I started fighting, you know, and I started going to fights and watching. I got hooked. I got hooked bad, and like.
And you had like 5 amateur MMA fights, is
5
it?
amateur MMA and 2 Muay Thai, and the rest is all grappling. I would estimate about 200 plus. But like I've always seen that where like new people would just start off right. Like I've seen guys compete or not compete but fight MMA, you know, back at home every 3 weeks, 2 weeks, go and take an MMA fight, and you don't see them winning, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like, dude, you may want to take some time off.
Yeah.
Learn
Work your
something,
skill set.
1 or 2, and then work your way up. You know, don't make that mistake. You know, and you won't. I don't think you'll be doing it for long, man. It's too much on the head.
Well, the other one that's quite common, I'm sure you've seen this. Everybody that's done jiu-jitsu for more than a few years has seen this. You ever seen like the white belt or the blue belt that falls in love with jiu-jitsu, gets addicted, goes fucking ape shit, starts getting all the Hayabusa shit, all of the really expensive gis, gets fully decked out, gets obsessed with jiu-jitsu, then burns out in 2 or 3 years, halfway through a blue belt, and then quits training.
Yeah, you get. What's that? There's a meme about once you get your blue belt or purple belt, you just won't show up after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because they burn too bright, too hot, too fast. And you'll get to see these people that get addicted to it. And then 2 or 3 years in, the grind is just killing them.
Yeah.
And then they'll leave, they'll take some time off, and then they won't come back.
No.
And you'll see this a lot. People that were addicted, I mean, they'll get the fucking really expensive $200-$300 gis, the special editions. They'll start fucking eating acai and posting on Facebook in Portuguese and shit like that. Yeah. I mean, you'll see this all the time, right?
Yeah.
And then 2-3 years later, they're burned out from the grind.
Yeah.
And it's because, same thing, they went so hard, so fast that they didn't think about the long term. Listen, people get married, you have kids, you have to go to school. Like, life will get in your way.
Life will get in the way, man.
And if you can't chill in the training session, you're going to be burned out, you're going to be injured, and then 5-6 years when you're purple, you're high blue, you want to get your black, but you're burned out, and life gets in the way, and then those people don't come back.
No.
But if you come and the training is good and you can go light sometimes. If you have a bad day, you can come in and just chill, let people work. Over 10 years, 3-4 times a week for the average hobbyist, that's sustainable.
That is.
Those people will keep training.
For sure.
So it's better to do. People are like, oh, should I come? I want to come twice a day. I want to do every competition. I'm just like, relax.
Yeah, calm down.
Let's try to get 3 or 4 times a weekend consistently. Come in, build up. If you get burned out, take a little time off. Maybe mix in some striking, something else just to keep it fresh.
Injuries as well, man. You get injured, man, take time off. You know, because it's your body, man. That's your money making pretty much. You know, if you want to keep going, you want to take time, you want to rest, you want all that, you know. Like I hurt my wrist, you know. I stopped training for a week and a half actually traveling as well. And but even a week and a half, I just started getting the itch. Like I was saying yesterday, I was like, man, I really just want to get back.
You're just getting FOMO watching everybody in there.
Oh man, yeah, you get in the gym and you see all these guys training and I'm just like, oh fuck, That's what I want to do right now, man. You know.
But you did the right thing, right? When
Yeah.
you hurt your wrist, you're injured, so you went in, and except for like you had one tough roll with a purple belt or whatever,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
beyond that, you relax, you chill.
You have
I mean, I hurt my shoulder like 3 weeks ago. I was wrestling, just wrestling.
Yeah.
We were just doing takedowns and shit.
Yep.
And you can always get injured if you're wrestling, throwing weight around like that.
Yeah.
Tweaked my shoulder, but I'm gonna keep training. So from now on, I just play guard. I'm playing on my back. I train around. I'm not going to do hard wrestling anymore. If we go on the feet, I'm going to play nice and light, and then I'm going to get in a position where I'm not going to hurt my shoulder.
Yeah.
Like I train around that. I work different positions that aren't going to hurt me so much, and then I can keep training. The question is, are you hurt or are you injured?
Me?
No, I'm just saying in general, right? If you're hurt,
Yep.
certain thing, your wrist, my shoulder, you can kind of train. If you're
Yeah.
injured, you got to stay home.
Yeah.
Like if you're injured and there's a real problem,
work on it.
you can't train anymore. But
Yeah.
if you just get a little banged up, you get a little hurt in a couple days, ice it up, you probably still train around it.
I've seen guys with like fucked up ACL,
Yeah, that's
you
problem.
know, injuries, and you still see them come in the gym and all that. Like, dude, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, that's
You're supposed to rehab this.
That's not. If
Rehab
it's a
it,
knee
you know?
or a neck or a back.
Yeah, so that's serious shit, man.
Yeah.
That's serious. I've had my brother both of his knees from soccer, not any martial arts related, but like, you know, and he still like goes back and do soccer and all that. And I was just like, dude, you're nuts. Take some time off.
That needs a year probably.
Oh,
like
man.
an ACL is rough.
Yeah, and he was like sitting on the back for a while and just having the feet up like that, elevated and all that. I'm like, dude, you're fucking nuts.
I tore in my pro debut, my first pro MMA fight, I tore my meniscus in my left knee.
Oh shit.
Like 10 seconds into the first round.
Oh man.
It was so fucking brutal, right?
Fuck.
So I was, at the time, I was living in St. Lucia, which is like a Caribbean island.
Yep.
But I was training out of the Adrenaline Training Center in London, Ontario, in Canada. And so, but I lived there, and I was like boxing with the St. Lucia boxing team, the national team in St. Lucia. So I was doing my striking there. When I took this fight, which took place in Trinidad, I flew back to Canada for like 6 weeks to do a training camp there.
Yep.
And so, you know, I'm spending all this money. I flew back to Canada, and then I flew to Trinidad to do this fight. And then literally in the first 10 seconds of the fight, I'm fighting this fucking huge Jamaican dude. You can find him on my Facebook. I mean, this guy is like, I'm a small lightweight. This is when I was fighting. I fight featherweight now.
Yeah.
But I was lightweight then. I mean, this fucking dude is like towering over me. Huge ass black Jamaican dude, right? So first pro MMA fight. And then he comes out, he throws like a low kick in the first like 5 seconds, just kind of catches me with a low kick or whatever, not a big deal.
Man.
Then a couple seconds later, he throws another low kick. I try to jump back to
He
avoid
hit
the
you
low
on
kick,
the knee.
and he hit me on the side of the leg while I was jumping back. And it twisted my body, and then I landed sideways on my foot, and it just tore my meniscus right away. And then, but it happened so fast, like 5 seconds later, he tried to throw another leg kick, and I
Yeah.
caught the leg kick and took him down. And then, so I mean, that whole thing took place in like 10 or 15 seconds.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I spent the whole rest of the round just ground and pound on top, doing a lot of
Trying
damage.
to avoid it.
I mean, I didn't
Yeah.
even know what happened.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
for like
the
4.5
adrenaline,
minutes,
man.
I mean, I'm dominating the
Yeah.
fight. I took him down on top, throwing elbows, throwing punches, dominated the fight, and then I'm on top in the closed guard. And then right after the end of the first round, you know, we get up to go back to our corner. I try to stand up because I'm on my knees in the
Oh,
top
you just
position,
couldn't.
and my leg had no stability on it. As soon as I stood up, I started limping, and I was like, "Fuck!"
Oh,
and I had no
man.
idea what
That's
was going
the
on.
worst,
I didn't
man.
even know until I tried to stand because I was just on my knees.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't feel a pop when he kicked me or anything because
Yeah.
it just happened so
It's
fast.
the adrenaline too, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
Adrenaline.
pumped up, you know.
And then I go back to the corner, and I'm having trouble walking.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel pain, but it's so unstable. It's like every time I would walk, my knee would just fucking shake.
Oh, I bet.
So it
man.
lacked complete
I
stability.
bet.
And then so it's in between the first and the second round. The doctor's checking me out. I have a hard time standing on one leg. And I'm like, no, dude, I'm not going to go
They
out
called
there.
it?
Yeah, called
Oh,
it.
man.
In between the rounds, doctor stoppage.
Man,
Because
that
I'm
sucks.
not going to go out with this dude on one leg.
It happens though.
Like, I'm just,
It happens.
yeah, I'll take that L. I'm not going to
Yeah,
go get fucking
yeah.
brain damage
Yeah.
by trying to fight a dude on one leg in my pro debut.
Yeah.
But it's
is
one of those
is it
things-
actually an L? I don't think it would consider being an L.
Well,
know?
technically.
Yeah, but
I mean, he threw a kick, and it landed, and it tore something in my knee, and then that was it.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's fine. Like, I'm not butthurt about it or
Yeah,
anything like
yeah,
that. I
yeah.
was a little upset at first, but you know how it is. I mean,
Yeah.
you just deal with it. It's one of those things, and
it
then, you know,
happens.
fought again because I wanted to get on the winning side and see how
Yeah.
things would look, but it's one of those things that can happen.
Yeah.
Happens in a fight. You just have to
For
decide.
sure, man. For
Is
sure.
it worth it, right? The risk that you're
Yeah.
going to go through when you're in there, like, is it worth continuing?
Yeah.
And for that one, I couldn't stand on the leg at all, and I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
I had to go and get an MRI done after that, and then I was on crutches for like 2 months, and then
Yeah.
after that, for even 6 months, it was unstable. And now it still clicks every time
Oh,
I curl
man.
my heel to my butt. My meniscus will click over.
Man,
and
did you
pop.
train during that time or no?
No, I took like
You
3-4 months off after
okay.
that, and then like
Yeah, you see, that's smart.
Yeah.
That's smart because you want to take that taken care of first, and then you go back to doing what you're trying to do. You know.
Yeah, and I never had surgery on it, and now it's pretty good. It still clicks and shit, but
Oh man.
but it's pretty good. I don't notice it anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
And then right after that was when I moved to Singapore. Shortly after that.
yeah. It's awesome in here, man. And
Oh yeah, I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on Singapore? So you've never been here before. You've only been here for like 2 days.
2 days, man. I haven't seen much, but from what I've seen, it's just amazing, man. You know, people are sweet, nice, genuine. The atmosphere is amazing. It's hot.
It's clean.
It's clean. The rules are like, I would say, one of the best rules in the world. I would say.
Bit strict here, but
Bit
everybody,
strict, but like,
everybody's willing to play by the rules
Yeah.
for the sake of the greater,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
greater good. You know.
Yeah, it's just amazing though, you know. But yeah, you guys are amazing here as well, you know.
Thanks, dude.
Sure.
Appreciate that. We'll take you out. He hasn't seen Marina Bay, or he hasn't seen downtown
Yeah,
area yet.
Tonight's gonna happen. We're gonna
So,
make it happen.
Yeah, after training tonight, we'll take you out and show you what's up. You can actually
Awesome.
see the proper part. We're just stuck back here in Horse City, Turf City, way back behind where all the horses are and shit. So you're seeing like a really weird part. This is not what most of Singapore looks like.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people have been telling me how it is outside of here. You know, like you were saying earlier, you haven't seen shit.
Yeah. Only 2 days, man. You're just trying to figure out where to get your Kopi and where to
Yeah,
get
man.
all that shit.
I got lost yesterday. Walked about 6 miles.
Which is like half of Singapore. If you
Yeah,
6
man.
miles is half of
Yeah.
the entire country.
I literally kept walking straight, and I asked another person. They were like, "Oh, direct me on the other side." Just kept making a circle.
Pretty quickly you'll understand though. It's
Oh,
only,
yeah.
I mean the whole fucking island. How Wugong, do you know what's the size of Singapore end to end? Do you know the length? Is it 60 kilometers? 100? I don't. Okay,
An
sure.
An hour, you could spend the whole.
Yeah,
country
an hour
in a
you can drive. Yeah, you can drive all the way across
Yeah,
Singapore in
yeah.
an hour.
Yeah, it's
like
like
45 minutes.
Hawaii, I guess. Hawaii is like
I think it's even smaller.
Hawaii.
No, Singapore.
Really?
Than Hawaii. Oh fuck it, in total for sure.
Oh shit.
End to end.
Oh wow.
31 miles end to end.
Wow.
There's 7 million people in this motherfucker, and it's 30 miles long. Just to give you an idea of
What
the
the
population
fuck?
density. Yeah, dude.
Man.
So it's 27 by 34. Is that about right?
It's 50 by 37 kilometers or 31 by 17 miles.
31 by 17 miles for the Americans.
So you could literally go for a run in here.
Dude, yeah, you can run halfway across it.
run whole Singapore.
Yeah, and there's 7 million people here.
Yeah.
This
yeah.
is why when I had the idea of doing the podcast, I actually had the idea a few years ago because I did a smaller one, but it was only the audio. And then last year when I moved to Malaysia, I thought about starting up this like Asia-based MMA podcast, what we're doing now.
Yep.
And but I knew once I moved back to Singapore like 6 months ago that this is the perfect place to do it because one, the martial arts community here is thriving.
Yep.
Every person that I would ever want to interview on the podcast is like maximum 40 minutes away.
Yeah.
So there's 7 million people here. There's tons of fighters, tons of black belts, tons of people that are interested. Like Singapore is one of the coolest countries in the world, and every one of the 7 million people are available to you in like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So I just knew that like, and Singapore has its own little cultural bubble.
Yep.
So word gets around quickly, right? So I kind of knew that if I started this podcast within 6 months or a year, most of the jiu-jitsu and MMA community would at least have seen something of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I would probably end up being like that dude with a podcast or that coach with a podcast really quickly.
Yeah.
And, the community is so small that I know a bunch of the coaches and shit already. So I
Yeah.
figure once we get a couple of them done, get the production value up, and then start inviting people that they'd be quite keen to do it. So
Yeah. It's always about working way up, man.
yeah.
You know? So
Just we're trying to, for the listeners, we're trying to increase the quality of this.
Yeah.
Last episode, Wugong first one in 4K.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we're working our way up, dude. We started out in episode 1 with a really wide angle shot.
Yeah.
For those of you that watched it, and if you're listening, go check out the YouTube because the production quality is increasing.
Man, every day 1% better. You know.
You know what's weird though is like, do you ever watch yourself roll, like videotape yourself rolling or anything like that? Or competitions, like watch yourself
Competition,
in
yeah.
you see
for
the video
sure,
of
yeah.
yourself.
Or like sparring, like I used to like record just to see what kind of mistake, because you always learn from watching yourself. You know, it's like, holy shit, I didn't know I'm doing this wrong. You know, I don't know if I'm doing this right. You know. So it's like you're always learning. You're constantly learning from watching yourself. But yeah, like competition or like I used to record like some of my sparrings or whatever, you know.
So it's you can learn when you watch yourself in a different
Yeah.
way than you can when you're actually in it, right?
Of course,
So
yeah.
it's one of the weird things about this podcast, right? Because this is only episode 4 of this,
Yep.
and I'm trying to make it high quality, right? I want to have put out a good product.
Yep.
And it's one of those things where like I've had to go back and watch and listen to some of them.
Yeah.
And when you listen to yourself talk, you just sound like a fucking asshole, right? Like it's one of those things like you ever just listen to yourself try and talk and try to make a point.
Yeah.
As I'm going back and I'm watching these
Yeah.
things, I'm like, God, I'm a fucking asshole. I say stupid shit sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like listening to myself say some of this stuff, and it's like sometimes I find myself annoying.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God, if I find myself annoying, I'm sure people listening to this shit are finding it annoying. So I'm trying to. But it's interesting, right? Because I've only
Yeah.
done, this is my 4th one. And
Yeah.
I did like 7 or 8 of the old one.
Yep.
So I'm like less than 20 podcasts deep. So there's no question I'm going to get better over time if I put energy into it.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where like when you watch yourself do jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
you can take a different sort of critical lens when
Yep.
you're seeing yourself and hearing yourself talk.
Yeah.
And then I've heard myself say some shit on this fucking thing where I'm like, okay.
Or you meet somebody and you're trying to sound professional
Yeah.
and you say something and like later on in the day or the next day or you're about to sleep and you were like,
God. With the Chris Tang podcast, I
Yeah.
said some cringy shit, bro.
Oh, man.
I had to go back and listen to that, and I'm like, fuck, man, I got a lot to learn when it comes to doing this
yeah,
thing.
you're just like, man, did I really say that?
Yeah.
Man, shit.
And
That's
it's just-
embarrassing.
it's one of those things. I want to increase the quality, so I
Yeah.
kind of have to do it, and I'm just like, okay. So I'm trying to sort of sculpt
Yeah.
how I'm perceived when I do these things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like that thing where you watch yourself roll. It makes you a little uncomfortable. You see mistakes that you make,
Yep.
but you kind of have to put the product out anyway,
Yeah.
even though maybe you wish you'd said something differently or phrased
Yeah.
something differently.
It is what
or
it is, though.
Not made a stupid fucking joke or whatever, you know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, though.
So we're still in the infancy stages of this thing, but it's pretty weird listening to yourself talk, man. Like,
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, it's like, damn, is this how it really sound?
yeah.
You know? Yeah.
And, you know,
But-
you don't express your ideas as clearly as you would have liked.
True.
And
True. That's
even like
always
martial
true.
arts, right? You're trying to do a move, and you're like, why the fuck is this not working?
Yeah.
Like someone's shutting it down or something. When you're in it, very
Yeah.
difficult to actually see what's happening. But then as soon as you see a video of yourself, you're like, oh, he was
Ah.
pinning my arm down, or he was
Yeah.
doing whatever it was, right?
This is where I made this mistake. This
Yeah.
is what I did. Yeah, yeah, yeah. For sure, man.
But with podcasts, it's a lot more like foot in your mouth, right? Like,
Yeah, man. For me, it's like sometimes it's I would say difficult to talk. You know, it's hard to like completely express, cause I don't know like if I don't want to like be too offensive, cause I usually like I'm straightforward, man. Like if I want to say something, I say it. So a lot of times I would just keep my mouth shut. It's better just to keep my mouth shut. So. But yeah, I know exactly how you feel, man. I know
this is one of those formats, right? Like if you're doing a podcast where, you know, you can't be just black and white, fucking boring, like have no opinion on things.
fuck that.
You have to
gotta-
kind of put yourself out there a little
Oh,
bit
yeah.
for the better or the worse. You
Yeah.
have to be willing to make a joke and say something stupid and
Yeah,
fuck up. But
yeah.
then you have to be willing to deal with the consequences
Hey,
of saying something stupid
that's
or
what
offensive.
makes us human, man.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what makes us a human, you know?
But it's trying to select, like, is this... I mean, I don't want to be controversial necessarily.
Yeah.
But if you don't have an interesting take on things, if you don't have a perspective that other people haven't thought about, if you're totally PC,
Yeah.
then like just who's going to care? Because that's not how people are,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I'm trying to bridge that gap. And, you know, Singapore is one of those places where you can get in trouble for running your mouth a little too much.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not really. As
Okay.
long as you're not fucking crazy.
scare me, bro.
No. On the basic level like this, there's nothing to worry
No,
about,
I know,
right?
I know.
But it's just one of those things where it's like, you know, you just don't want to say anything too fucking crazy or weird.
Yeah, yeah, of course. You gotta always like.
But you do got to ride that line of still being interesting and having a nuanced opinion. And
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
is this the first time you've done a recording
Oh, yeah.
or anything like this?
Oh yeah, first time.
Pretty weird, right?
Pretty weird, man. Feel like I'm sitting with the Joe Rogan podcast.
Well,
Jamie.
We're going to build our way up. I know. See, Wugong, you just did the first Joe Rogan thing, man. You just looked something up for me. So we need to get you a laptop, and I can start telling you to look shit up, bro.
Oh yeah.
So that way I'm not just
Oh,
sitting here
yeah.
talking shit. One of my business partners was like, and on behalf of all of Singapore, I apologize for my Singapore political talk. my business partner's a Singaporean, right? And in the first podcast, we were talking about Lee Kuan Yew. Lee Kuan Yew is like the George Washington of Singapore.
Oh, okay.
He's like the first prime minister. He's like was the head of Singapore when it declared its independence from Malaysia, and then basically Singapore is its modern form in the last 50 years. I mean, it's just hugely developed from like a small, relatively small sort of shipping area into like the mega city-state that you see now. That whole transformation took place in like 50 years to the modern level. So it happened fucking quick.
Dubai is like that too.
Yeah, Dubai's like that too.
Yeah.
And they have the leader here is called Lee Kuan Yew, and he's like the George Washington, right? Yeah. Everybody loves him. He's sort of he was the first prime minister. And I started, but I'm not Singaporean. I don't know all the details. I kind of just know what I've heard. And then my business partner was like, yeah, podcast was going great. But then I turned it off when you started talking about Lee Kuan Yew. And I'm like, see, this is a good note. All you Singaporeans, I'm sorry, man. I'm trying here. And then I realized maybe I should get an expert on Lee Kuan Yew on the podcast just so I can educate myself. So I'm talking about fucking Singaporean politics. I don't know shit. We can talk about Donald Trump, but I don't know shit about
Hey, we just
Singapore
vibing
politics.
out here. We just vibing. We just,
Maybe we should talk about what we know, martial arts, and leave the politics to the fucking Singaporeans. All right, guys. I think we're going to take a little break here because I got to pee, and then we'll be back. So everybody, thank you for listening. Be right back.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. We're back to the Stronghold podcast. I'm here with Ali. Ali, by the way, give us your details, man. What's your name? Where are you from? Give everybody a little background on you, man.
My name is Ali. My last name is a little complicated, but it's Abdul Razak. I'm originally from Iraq. I was born in Iraq. We left during the war in 2005, in 05, after just went through some pretty fucked up shit.
Yeah.
And moved to Syria, lived for 3 years, and we refugeed to the United States.
So, I mean, actually, you must live a really interesting childhood in some sense because you were in Iraq when that happened, and then you kind of came to the U.S. during the Iraq War.
Yeah.
Did you feel that? Like, did you feel any sort of pressure culturally being a Iraqi living in the U.S. while the Iraqi war was going on?
Oh, man. I hate to say it, but it's always going to be there. But I get it. Every country that you're going to visit, you're always going to have, somebody who's, you're in my home,
Did you feel that shit, though? Like, did you get that vibe from people, or was
sure.
you did?
I could sense it. I could sense it.
You got any stories or anything?
I would say a lot of times people would actually just smile in your face, but really behind you, God knows whatever the fuck it is. But I don't ever let that in my head. Like, I don't ever worry about it because what the fuck is the point, I'm not going to let whoever in my head just because, you think of me or you've heard of what my people, did or done or whatever.
I mean, you went through some of the tough parts, too. You were in Iraq during 2005. Then you went to Syria, which is just a failed state at this point.
Yeah.
And then you immigrated to the U.S. during the Iraq War.
Yep. Yeah. We left just before Syria hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you avoided the worst part of Syria.
Yeah, but we had the worst part in Iraq.
It's interesting because I'm taking my wife to the U.S. for the first time this week.
Yep.
We leave on Thursday. So this podcast is going to be released a week late while I'm there so we can keep going. And I'm trying to sort of explain what American racism is to my wife.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing, right? In a modern day context, like, there's not a lot of racists in America in the classic sense, right? Like, there's no one that's like, oh, you're black, fuck you. It's not direct.
No.
It's more of like an indirect sort of racism. Like,
Yes.
Charmaine, my wife is Chinese.
Yep.
And she's like, oh, are they gonna say shit? I'm like, no one's gonna be directly racist to you.
No.
But what they will do is everybody's gonna notice that you're Asian.
Yeah, you'll get the looks.
You should get the looks.
You'll get the vibes.
And again, it's not going to be rude, but West Virginia, dude, it's fucking all white people. That's
I bet,
that's
man.
all it is, dude. It's just white people every fucking where you look, dude. There's some Angmo. I just taught you this word.
Angmo.
That's all they have. So, like, if you're the Asian person, like, nobody's going to be racist to you because you're Asian, but everybody is going to notice you because you're not white. So at the very least, like, people are just going to be aware of your presence. So I told her, I was like, no one's going to like be upset at you or judge you for that, but it's just that you stand out. So in that sense
you'll
alone,
definitely stand out.
You're going to draw some eyes.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. I've actually I'll be honest. I've had people come and direct say shit.
Really?
Yeah, maybe like their alcohol is.
Did you grow up speaking
Hidden,
English?
man.
Because your English is American standard. Like if I just met you and talked to you, I would think that you had immigrant parents, but you were raised in America based on your accent alone.
Yeah. No, I didn't speak English when I came to
Really?
the United States. No.
Wow, your accent is really clear.
All I knew was banana, apple, and fuck you.
Yes, the classics, man. You got the classics.
Yeah,
when you
man.
got
I
educated
used
in
to watch
America.
all the movies, and all I know is that fuck you.
And banana.
And banana, man. I liked bananas when I was young, so.
That's important word to learn early.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I definitely think you must have experienced some shit that's a little bit different than the typical thing. But man, when I just speak to you and talk to you, I would just guess that you grew up in the U.S. and had like maybe some Middle Eastern parents or something like that. But your accent's really clean. You speak English perfectly.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I mean, it took me actually 3 months to be able to communicate, but not fluent. You know, I just get a sentence, not a complete sentence, but I know like I'm trying to get to somewhere or need something or want to say something.
Did you experience any fucked up shit when you were young, just before you came over here?
I mean,
Or was most of the fucked up shit you experienced actually when you were in the U.S.? Was it pretty good for the most part when you immigrated, or
like in the States,
yeah,
or
either way? I mean, whatever.
yeah, I mean, you'll always encounter, somebody's probably having a bad day, or raised in a family that's taught differently, I would say. But other than that, I never let it in my head, because actually, like in Iraq, I've noticed back then there's Palestinians. They used to like come to Iraq, or Egyptians, and you'll have some Iraqis who are sort of racist against that. So going to a different country, going to Syria, I had to witness that. Being Iraqi in Syria.
So you were on the other side. You were feeling a bit of racism from the Syrians as an Iraqi?
Yes. And then, not racist, but like more
xenophobic,
of a...
just kind of like...
Yeah, you're in my country, but, But there's some... I met some of the sweetest people, man. Even in the United States, On the end of the day, like, we're all humans, You'll always encounter those good, and you'll always encounter the bad. No matter where you go and what part of the world.
A lot of the racism, it's not even a right word. Like, that word has just been co-opted, right? Like,
Yes.
racism is not the right word for
Yeah.
a lot of what you see. I'll give you an example, right? Me and Charmaine went to China, like, about 3 years ago.
Oh.
We were in Shanghai, and we went to another city.
Yep.
And we were there to teach some martial arts seminars.
Yep.
So a person that I used to work for had a bunch of Taekwondo schools and stuff.
Yep.
And they were thinking about maybe opening up a gym there. So
Yep.
we went there to basically teach some Taekwondo instructors a little bit of jiu-jitsu, just to see if they wanted to implement a program. So
Yep.
we were just going out there just to see, put
Just
some business
exploring.
feelers,
Yeah,
explore
yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
And so my wife goes, and I go with her, and it was one of those things where nobody was like directly racist to me in that sense, but it was the same thing that I'm trying to tell Charmaine. Everybody was just aware of my presence.
Oh, yeah.
So like I'm walking around Shanghai
yeah.
holding hands with my girlfriend
Yeah.
at the time,
Yeah.
and then everybody's just fucking breaking.
Yeah,
their
you'll
neck
get
to,
the looks,
to
man.
look at this white dude
Yeah.
who came to the country
Yeah.
and took one of their women and fucking is running away. It felt like that, right?
Yeah,
I mean, dude,
yeah.
we're walking down the street and people are snapping their necks as they drive by to take a look at me, and like you can feel it from
Yeah.
everywhere. It was just
Oh, yeah, man.
eyes on me
Yeah.
all the time.
And it sort of make you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like you say it's not uncomfortable, but man, it gets to you.
It was just
It
like
can get to
high
you.
level scrutiny.
Oh, yeah.
And I just felt like, and I'm that stereotypical fucking white dude who's got like a young Asian girlfriend.
Yeah.
So I just felt like a piece of shit the whole time too, because I'm just
Oh,
like,
man.
I'm living up to the stereotype perfectly, dude. Move to
Yeah.
Asia, fucking get a girl that's younger than you, and then go to China, and then they're just like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
Another fucking white dude coming
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
taking our women and running away.
Yeah.
I could feel just that stare, and it was the first time in my life where I was like, oh, I kind of get it.
Yeah.
Because like nobody was malicious to me.
No.
I mean, in China they're a bit fucking rude and shit.
Yep.
We were standing at I did get angry one time. We were standing in front of one of the ticket stands for the subway.
Yep.
And you line up, and then you get your Metro card or your MRT card or whatever,
Tickets, yep.
and you get on the train. And I'm standing in line. There's like one person in front of me, and I mean I'm as close to the ticketing stand as you are to me.
Yep.
Like I mean there's maybe just a meter or two between me and the ticket booth.
Yep.
And fucking some dude as soon as the guy in front of me
Cuts
leaves,
you
he
off?
just cuts right in front of me.
Oh.
And I mean, I'm chest to back with this dude. And there's
Yeah.
people behind me.
Yeah.
There's no fucking way he didn't know that I was standing in line.
Oh.
Right? He was just an asshole. And he's like, let me see what this dude does. And I look back to my wife. My fucking eyes are big. And I'm
Oh.
just, because he's just
Lit
being,
up.
there's no way.
No.
There's no way it was an accident. He's just
No.
being a dick,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
standing, he had to like squeeze
Oh,
in there.
man.
And I look at her and my eyes are big and I'm just like, oh, because I just can't handle that rudeness.
No,
just
that's,
like
it
that.
don't
right?
matter what country you're in, man.
Yeah,
it's
that's
just not
fucking. And I
right.
knew this guy was just playing with me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, just breathe. Just let
When
it
you
pass.
have the neck there, you know.
Exactly. Turn your back to me, dude. What are you doing? Don't be rude to me and then turn your back to me, son. I'll get you.
Let me show you what not to do in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, exactly.
Give the bag.
And well, that was one of the things that I learned about being in China was just the space.
Yeah.
The level of spatial awareness is just so different. I mean, we have personal space in America, right? It's
Yeah.
a big country. The population density is quite low.
Yeah.
Like if we're talking and we're around each other, unless we're in like a jam train, like we have room to move.
Yeah.
But in China, dude, those trains and everything was fucking brutal. Everybody's up your ass.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody's just like elbow to elbow.
Oh.
People were fighting on the train because like they were getting in there, and just the whole thing felt.
It's worse than New York.
Yeah. Oh, way worse
man.
than New York, dude. Way
New
worse. I
York-
mean, the
New York-
population density in Shanghai is insane.
New York in the morning. Have you been on a subway in the
Oh, yeah.
morning, early
Oh,
in
yeah.
the morning? Oh my
But
God,
it still
man.
ain't got nothing on China, dude.
Oh, really?
And also the etiquette,
yeah.
the etiquette and the manners in China are not as refined as they are in the U.S. People are more rude. Just straight up, you can
China?
just see it. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. That's what I mean. Like.
Just population, I think.
Yeah,
Because
if
of
it's a
population,
small
right?
town and
Yeah.
I'm rude to you, the word gets around,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Everybody knows
for
everybody.
sure.
Like,
Oh,
but in
sure.
China, dude, you're just a fucking number. Like,
Yeah.
There's
Yeah, that's
there's
true, yeah.
thousands of people coming and going, and so the level of the sort of human connection that you have is diminished more and more by the amount of people like around you.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it was
yeah.
one of those things where you could just feel that shit when you were there. That's why I like Singapore, because everybody here's polite.
Yep.
Everybody here's like nice, and it's populated, but
Yep.
not so populated that people are like a dick to you or anything like that. You just
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
get the best of both worlds.
Yep.
You get the city life, but at the same time, like there's space to move around, and it's not so jammed, and people are nice. And
Yeah. That's what I've noticed, man. Everybody's just, smiley faces, not rude, just, just being nice and genuine, like I said, But yeah, man, like I was saying earlier about the traveling, and like no matter where you go, you'll always gonna have somebody who grew up in a I don't know, in a way the family taught him or whatever, of they have an idea of these people. And honestly, in the United States, I've changed people. I wouldn't say I've changed people's mind, but you want to touch people's heart. You want to be like, no, we're not like that, man. We're not all like that. We're not all what the media shows. We're humans too.
well,
Yeah.
it's one of those weird things, right? Because I grew up in a Trump state. I mean, I'm from West Virginia. That shit's
man.
red, dude. Like, West Virginia's conservative. And then
Yeah.
I remember, and again, it's one of those things where if you're not exposed to people from different cultures, different races, you tend to not really know what they're really like.
Yeah.
And that sort of environment is what can breed xenophobia or racism or whatever the case.
Yeah.
And then I remember when I started traveling, I mean, I never met a Muslim,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, in my high school, there was like 1 or 2 black families.
Yep.
There was like 1 Japanese family.
Yep.
Everybody else is white.
Yeah.
So in my high school, which I think had about 400 graduating my senior year,
Yeah.
there was like literally 3 or 4 families that were anything other than white. So I wasn't exposed to that, and I grew up in a conservative state, and you sort of hear this rhetoric, and I grew up during the war in Iraq, right?
Yeah.
I'm in high school and
Yeah,
shit while that's
yeah.
going on. So it's one of those things that, like, I was never racist or xenophobic or never judged anybody for gay or religion or race or whatever the fuck, right? I just
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
care. But until you meet those people overseas, you don't really know what they're like.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, Muslims get a bad rap because ever since, I mean, I lived in Malaysia. We were just
Yeah.
talking about this.
Yeah.
Malaysia's a Muslim
Yeah,
Muslim country,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of countries in Asia, Indonesia also.
Yeah.
And, there's tons of Indians here and Buddhists and, you get the Hindus and you get a whole cloth of different
of everything.
and when
Yeah.
you meet, but particularly the Muslims, man, they are some of the most warm and friendly. I mean, dude, if you hang out with the Muslim, like they're gonna take you to their family, they're gonna give you tea,
Yeah,
they're gonna be
yeah.
polite, they're gonna invite you to all the shit, they're gonna take you to these special places, and like they hook you up.
Yeah,
They are
yeah.
just a very like once you're in that community, they are tight.
For
They're
sure,
very
man.
tight. They're introducing you to the family and the cousins and the aunties and
Yeah.
like everything else. And as an American, I did not. You just
Yeah.
get what you're exposed to in that
Yeah.
local area.
True. Like, have you like ever witnessed anything happen in front of you before?
Like in terms of like violence like that.
No, like, just somebody being rude to somebody, a foreigner, or something like that.
Not
you
really,
know?
man. I haven't seen
Like
it.
before you traveled, have you ever witnessed anything like?
No, not really.
No,
To be honest, I
no.
mean, this is the thing. Like America gets bad rap because it's quite polarized and shit.
Yeah.
But I think that's mostly like in the digital space, like
Yeah.
face to face. If two people meet and they're in
Yeah.
the U.S., like even if they're different races, different religions, like nobody,
Yeah.
in my experience, has ever cared or said anything about it.
Yep.
The only racist shit I ever saw was like from my great grandmother, because she was I was adopted when
Yep.
I was like a teenager, and
Yep.
so my adopted family, I would go in the summers and stay with my adopted family's like grandma, right?
Yep.
And she was 85 at the time. This would have been in the mid 2000s to late 2000s.
Yep.
And this is a fucking true story, dude. She would watch, you know Chuck Norris, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
you know Walker, Texas Ranger, the old TV show that Chuck Norris did, like that made him, after the Bruce Lee movies, he had like a TV show where he played a cop from Texas, and it was called Walker, Texas Ranger.
Okay.
Right, and it's Chuck Norris, and he's got this black dude that is like his deputy or his assistant in the thing.
Okay.
And dude, she and my great grandmother, 85 at the time, born in like 1910 or some shit.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
dude, 1920, whatever. Was alive during World War II, everything, right? And she would, when Walker Texas Ranger would come on the TV, she'd be like, that N-word. And she would just call him that.
Oh, man.
So he was the N-word. No
Oh,
matter
man.
what. No matter what.
Yeah.
Now, when she said it, it wasn't like
Big of a deal, yeah.
It wasn't like she was being directly racist.
Yeah.
That was just the word that people used when she was
yeah.
young.
Yeah.
And so, I think not good. It's not exactly accurate. But I was talking to Ali earlier about the use of the term Angmo in
Angmo,
Singapore.
yeah,
And
yeah.
Angmo is like redhead.
Yeah.
But it's the term that it's sort of like the slang that they use for white people in Singapore.
Yeah.
So if you're white, and you might be white, even though
Yeah.
you're not fucking white.
Or
right?
hold on, what did you say? Banana earlier?
Oh,
Banana.
yeah, Wugong's a
Yellow
fucking
on the
banana.
outside,
Yellow on the outside,
white
white on the inside,
inside.
baby. So you got Angmos, you got bananas, and if you ask a Singaporean, they'll probably tell you that Angmo is not pejorative. It's not
Yeah.
derogatory. It's just
Yeah.
a term that they use.
Yeah.
But what it does is it generalizes every white person into this one group. So in a certain sense, it is a pejorative, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not offended by it when people call me that, but it's not like you use someone's name.
Yeah.
It's personal, right? Like you have a
Yeah.
fucking name. I'm not going to call you Angmo or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
And I think it was like that. She would use that word because that's the word she used.
Yeah,
And
back then.
she didn't use it as a pejorative. That was just the fucking word she grew up with.
Yeah.
But then,
yeah.
of course, you can't say that shit, right?
No.
Of course you can't
No.
call people that nowadays.
Yeah.
But you have in that hick-ass West Virginia culture of people that grew up in the fucking 20s,
Yeah.
like, good luck telling 85-year-old great-grandma that
Not to do
not to
that.
use that word because
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
racist.
yeah.
She was like,
Yeah.
no, it's not racist. That's just
Yeah.
what they're called.
Yeah.
And we're like, no, grandma, that is not. No, that word has changed.
Yeah. I mean, you grew up that way, so it's like, it's like,
Is there an Iraqi word for white people, Western people?
no, just Amriki.
That's it.
Amriki, that's it.
There's no like pejorative word for
Not
white
that
people.
I know of, no.
God damn it, Wugong. We're talking about race again. We're
Yeah.
not
We-
supposed to do
we
this.
have-
I had to cut some shit out of one another
Dude,
podcast because
dude.
we were getting fucking racist, and now we're doing it again. I'm trying to be on the even line here, people. I'm sorry if I've offended
Honestly,
you or your
we're
family.
just talking. We're just, laying out what's in here,
We're just
So-
two Angmos. Well, one
Yeah.
Angmo. He doesn't. I don't know if he counts, but
But like in Iraq, man, we have black people. We have like straight up, we have black people.
yeah, you have
we
the Muslim,
white,
African,
white
black
people
as well.
Yeah, yeah, and like Iraqi, like straight up Iraqi. Just like me, they speak like me and all that. So we never like. There isn't really like. I'm sure there's probably a racists over there, or what's another word for racist? I would say, but I'm sure, like I said, every country that I've gone to, you'll witness something like that. You know, people either get criticized for being in another country or whatever. You know, tell you a story like back in the States. You know, I've seen somebody like hanging out, and somebody was actually from what was it? Nepal, and another person. Like, we're three of us sitting talking, and the dude, you know, just asked where he's from. You know, so the dude leaves. The Nepalian dude leaves, and the guy, I don't want to bring any names. The guy that was there, you know, just started criticizing. You know, being Nepal, all these guys smell good, smell bad, and all that. You know, and I just looked at him. I was like, dude, like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know, you're gonna.
Especially like Nepalese people are
Yeah.
cool as fuck. Man.
Yeah, dude. Like,
I've been to Nepal. Those
yeah,
people are
man.
cool.
Yeah,
It's
like,
a weird. It's a weird place to pick on somebody from there that they're from. They have a pretty good reputation overseas, I thought.
yeah, man. Like, honestly, like, I don't care where the fuck you're from, man. You have no right to criticize anybody for whatever, you know. Maybe, like, you'll have, I would say, not a bad image, but, like, let's say, you know, one time a bad reaction happens, you're not going to judge them based on that. You know, you got to give everybody a chance, a fair chance.
Yeah.
You know?
I'll give you a story too, and I'm going to be treading the line thinly here.
Send it.
I'm going to talk about some Singapore race shit, so I apologize on behalf. If I do an accidental racism, I apologize in advance. But so, you know, Singapore is a melting pot, right? It's very ethnically diverse,
Yep.
but you will see some weird shit here sometimes that you would never see in the U.S., right? I'll give
Yep.
you a little example. I know this guy Maher. He does jiu-jitsu here in Singapore. He's a ref for a bunch of the tournaments, and I think he's a brown belt. I don't know if he's a black belt now or not, but shout out to you, Maher. He just shared something on Facebook, and it was he was asking about rent. He was trying to rent a place somewhere, right?
Yep.
Just get an apartment, and he's Singaporean. He's
Yep.
fucking born here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And he applied for a place to live, and he was like, "Hey, I'll be out of town for a while. When can we meet up?" And they write him back, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, we're only accepting applications from foreigners."
Oh.
So he's a Singaporean, and they wouldn't let him live in this place because
Yeah.
he's not a foreigner.
Yeah, that's actually like the thing that you explained earlier about the casino.
Yeah, same
The
thing.
casino.
The casino, only foreigners get in
Yeah.
for free. Locals got to pay.
Yeah,
And
bro.
I'll give you- and I'll go one up. Again, treading lightly here.
Yeah.
You can see this, and I've seen this when I was looking for apartments. There are some apartments that you can look for, condos and shit, where it will literally say on the listing, no Indians.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because it'll be like an expat condo, or it'll be a Chinese condo or something, and they can literally say no fucking Indians. Isn't that crazy? I'm not trying to stir the pot here.
insane,
This
yeah.
is just my personal experience. So
No, like-
get
like
mad
I
at me
was-
if you want. I'm just describing to you an anecdote that someone else saw that I just saw yesterday, and
Yeah.
me personally looking for a condo. And I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, "Can you do that? Can you just
Yeah.
say no
Yeah.
Indians? Like that's crazy to me."
Yeah, that's really crazy. But like I was
this
saying
is also
earlier,
a country where sorry, to
No,
interrupt,
you're
but
good,
this
no.
is also a country where the racial balance is really good. There's no people are pissed that the Indians aren't mad at the Malays, aren't mad at the Singapore.
Yeah.
Like
It's
everybody
just how it
here
is, I guess.
exists very peacefully. All the
Yeah.
religions and races, but then you'll see these little things that are quite weird that you would never see in America.
Yeah,
But then again, in America, the racial tension is way higher than it is here,
yeah,
where they have some of these weird little things.
yeah.
So it's just one of
Yeah.
those things like every
Yeah.
country sort of has their own way of dealing with this and the racial tensions and making everybody live together peacefully. But you'll still get some weirdness even in a place like this.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, like you were saying earlier, how you were in China with your wife, and like you'll witness people just turning around. I went from Vermont to Florida. I just traveled. I was going through a rough time at the time. I just wanted the space. Me and my cousin, and we drove down to Florida and like down south.
It's a long drive.
Yeah, dude. And I remember like walking into gas stations or whatever, like in down like in North Carolina or Carolina, and you'll see like I remember walking a gas station, and you'll have people like just turn around.
Yeah, very aware of you.
Yeah,
Right?
and like, hey, what's up? You know. But it's like I said, like you get it everywhere. Like in Iraq, I witnessed it. Being an Iraqi, people being I wouldn't say offensive, but like sort of like not racist, but you know, like criticizing somebody from a different country.
Yeah.
And when I traveled to Syria, I had that happen to me, and I saw that happen. When I traveled to the United States, I realized, man, people are actually racist to black people. You know, so it's like, no matter where you're gonna go, you'll always have that. I would say, you know. But what can you do? You know, what else can you do?
It's just gonna take time, man.
Except be a better human and try to like send out a positive vibe, so everybody could, you know, work their way, you know, and hopefully make the world a better place, you know.
Well, it's one of those things, like, over time, I think this shit will go away.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, a lot of Singaporeans are surprised by this statistic, and I don't know how accurate it is nowadays, but it's still not far from the truth.
Yeah.
But only something like 10 to 20% of Americans even have a passport. So you're dealing with like 10, because most live in the central part of the United States. Then you got the cities, you got New York and California.
Yeah.
Those places will have more people who've traveled.
Yep.
But if you're not in Chicago, Houston, New York, or LA, or one of the big ass cities, those people are most likely not leaving, or at the very most, it's Canada or Mexico.
Yeah.
So when you have a 350 million population like the U.S. and 10 to 20% of your people they're the only ones that have left your country, you're going to have a certain amount of xenophobia that exists.
Yeah.
Over time, that shit will go away, but it's like a fucking old school racist or someone that's homophobic. The only thing that's going to make you not racist or not homophobic is meeting somebody from a different race or meeting somebody that's gay.
Yeah.
As soon as you have a human one-on-one connection with a person,
Yeah.
very quickly you'll realize that what the fuck was I thinking? Like, these are just people. Like, they're people like anyone else. And once you have that personal contact with them, you'll very quickly start to question what you were thinking. But if you just are sitting in your bubble in fucking rural West Virginia, North Carolina, Alabama, like one of these small town areas, and you've never met someone from China or Singapore or Africa or wherever the fuck, you're probably going to have some inaccurate depictions of them.
Yeah.
How could you have anything else if you've never met one? Person from there.
Yeah, for sure. I've actually have had people come up to me and say, like, you could tell like they had a different idea of you or like your people or whoever, and I've had them come up and say, hey, like, you know, I'm glad I met you, you know, like now I understand, you know, this and that, you know, so thank you and all that. And like I respect that, you know, like people are not just gonna be closed-minded, you know. I respect the ones that, you know, come up and honestly say, you know, straight up of like what they're, you know, how they felt about you, you know. And like I've had a friend before, it happened in front of it, like I had somebody come up and say, you know, you're, you know, like you guys are really nice people, you know, even though we've heard a lot of shit about you guys, but you guys are like nice and all that, and like thank you, blah blah. And like I had my cousin, he's like, man, this guy is racist. I'm like, no, bro, like this guy just literally like acknowledged what's happening, you know. And like I respect that for that, you know. I respect him for that, you know. But yeah, you'll always have that, man. But let's I don't know, too much race, huh?
No, dude, we can talk about it.
No, I don't know how Singaporeans feel about that.
Dude, you can extrapolate this shit everywhere, right? Like, I mean, I'll give you another example, right?
Yeah.
Like, I get stereotyped all the time as some fucking like wife-beating, brutish type dude, right?
Yeah.
I've not had a single girlfriend whose parents haven't asked if I fucking beat her. Why? Because I'm the bald white dude with tattoos who teaches MMA, and it's got this certain connotation, right?
Yeah.
My own fucking wife's mom was like, "Does he beat you?" And I'm like, I fucking told her. I told her years ago. I was like, I guarantee you, she's gonna ask that question at some point. And she was like, No, she won't. Right before we get married. Right before we get married, my wife's mom comes up. She goes, "Hey, just don't look into this. Not a big deal, but does he hit you?" And she came and told me right afterward, and I was like, "I fucking told you." What? Because I'm the bald dude with fucking tattoos.
Yeah.
That just looks a certain way.
Yeah, and you fight too.
Yeah. So if you don't know me, and if you've never talked to me long term, it's easy to see. I get it, right? I fit the stereotype.
Yeah.
Like when we went to China and people were breaking their necks to take a look at me, I get it.
Yeah.
And fucking white, bald, kind of jacked. I said it, kind of jacked, covered in tattoos, And I fit a certain stereotype, right?
Yeah.
And I don't blame people for doing that, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things. I think if you talk to me for like 20 minutes,
Yeah.
you're probably going to realize that I'm not
Yeah.
angry.
Perspective,
I'm not
man.
aggressive.
Yeah.
I'm not a fucking asshole. I'm
Yeah.
not violent at all. I've just
Yep.
said, I've been doing martial arts for 15 years. I have never once been in a street fight.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
I've never been in an altercation that got physical, even though it's something, you think about, you train. I've been training martial arts dedicated for 15 years.
Yeah.
So there's no question that those thoughts
Yeah.
have cropped into my head, but never been in a fight in my entire life that I wasn't paid for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah.
even though I fit the type, I fit the bill, people are just going to make those judgments, whether it's your race or your look or how you speak or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, I could show you a video right now. I actually have a footage of it. I had to put somebody on his back before.
Did you get someone swung on you?
Oh man, he came up and he's like talking like all this crazy shit, and I'm like, dude, get out of here! I'm not trying to like fight you.
At a
Until
bar or
he,
something, drunk guy?
no, it was like outside in downtown,
Oh.
and he like swung at him. I was a purple belt at the time, and he's big dude, jacked, Marine, and he's like, I'm a Marine, I'm a sergeant, blah blah blah. I think he was pretty drunk, not like drunk, but like, man, he could do damage,
Yeah.
And I remember he just like swung, and I just took his bag, sat
Cool.
there.
Here's a double leg for you.
Oh man, it was just perfect. But like I try to avoid it as much as I can. I try
But
to
you
avoid
did
it.
exactly what you're supposed to do with
Exactly.
your training.
Well, what
Which is
happened
when
was
you
he
get in
actually-
that situation, you de-escalate it. If that doesn't work, you just disable the
Yeah,
person.
I
right?
swear to God, I have this thing. If somebody hits me, and I feel like I could do some damage and they won't do as much damage to me, I won't do as much.
Yeah.
But once they touch somebody that is close to me and you cross a line, that's it, So at the time, I just took him, put him in a rear naked. There was 3 cops standing. I swear to God, and they're just standing there and watching, And I'm like yelling, help, help. You could see it in the video too.
Wow,
I'll
that's
show you
fucked up.
after.
Yeah, show me after.
And the cops come up and another thing is, man, cops. I don't care what cops, where you are from, man. Train jiu-jitsu, train martial art,
yeah,
man.
no doubt about
Because holy fuck, man.
Yeah, you have to. If
You
you're
have
if you're a
to.
police officer and you're not training jiu-jitsu.
So after handing them, I had him in the rear naked. I was like, you got it? She's like, yeah. So I gave.
you pass them off, right?
Yeah, and 3 of them, stacked on top of him. I think was female, and then 2 guys, and they ended up tasing him, and he
Oh,
pissed himself.
shit.
He pissed himself, and they had a hard time.
So you
cuffing him.
literally passed this
Cuff
dude off
him.
to 3
I
police
swear to
officers
God.
who couldn't do what you
Took
did by
me-
yourself.
It took me 3 seconds, 4 seconds to take his bag and just put his ass on the floor, and he was a big dude. My cousins were just like,
yeah.
I don't
And then
talk.
the cops have to resort to tasing him, making him shit himself, and like
Yeah, he
being
pissed
unable.
himself. But
pissed
like
himself.
that's the thing. Like I don't usually talk to people about martial arts because I don't know. Even though I do it every day, people expect you to talk about it all the time. But I never talked about it. But once they saw it, dude, they're all just like, "Oh my God, like
Yeah.
this is crazy,"
It's so important. I mean, and I think we'll wrap up on this point.
Yeah.
But did you see? We have to talk about this. Did you see? Yeah, sure. I'll take one.
Oh.
Oh shit, we got some.
Oh.
Wugong, Wugong, bringing us the bubble tea.
Man.
So thanks, dude.
Thanks.
So not a sponsor. So we talk about this. Did you see the video of BJ Penn, the newest video of him?
And you were one?
Oh, like from the last few days.
No.
Oh
No,
shit,
I've
son.
seen Matt Sierra.
No.
Matt Sierra
No, this
just-
is the opposite. This is a terrible video. So this was like just
Oh.
a few days old. BJ Penn, for the second time in like a month, got caught in a street fight. And he was talking shit to this drunk dude, fat dude, right, no shirt on, white dude, arguing with BJ Penn. And I mean, they're in each other's face. BJ, they're like talking, blah, blah, blah. They're pushing each other. And then BJ just like drops his hands. This dude fucking knocks him
Swung?
the fuck out. Yeah.
He knocks PJ?
Knocks BJ out cold.
Oh.
With a short left hook, dropped
fuck.
him, knocked him the fuck out. This is one of the best MMA
Oh,
fighters of all time.
man.
One of the greatest. One of
Yeah,
the GOATs.
That's letting your guard down, man. That's
It's letting your guard down, and it's a guy who cannot give up fighting, and it's a guy who's not
Yeah.
learned all the lessons. This is the second time he's been in a street fight,
yeah.
and he's lost, I think, 8 fights in a row
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
UFC. He's 40 years old.
Yeah.
Dude, if you're 40 years old, you're a former 2-division UFC champion. You're the first ever Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world
Yeah.
champion that's an American. What are you doing fighting drunk dudes at a fucking bar?
Yeah, shit.
And, like, with no regard to the fact that this person can hurt him, he
Yeah.
gets knocked the fuck out by some bro dude at a bar who's shirtless in a street fight.
Oh man, that's
I mean,
that's not.
it's
no,
not a
that's
good look.
brutal, man. No.
He's had one of the largest falls from grace in the history of the sport.
Yeah,
He's
man.
on like an 8-fight losing streak
Yeah.
inside MMA, and then dude, if you get knocked out by a drunk dude at a bar, that's
Man.
rough.
Yeah, that's rough, man. Usually you see somebody intoxicated, man, just walk the fuck away. If they swing at you, choke their ass out.
Yeah.
In a nice
But
way.
that was his mistake,
don't
right?
don't hurt them, but
he's doing throwing strikes.
Yeah.
Like, why are you trying to swing at this dude? Because
Yeah.
it's an ego thing again, right?
I'll
He
have to
thought-
see the video.
I'll show you
man.
after. It's-
Man, that's-
knocked, laid out, knocked the
Oh
fuck out.
man, was he
Short
drunk
left
too?
hook. Probably.
Man,
It's sad, right?
yeah.
But
I've had this one time before, but it's not like that.
introducing Ali to some Singaporean bubble tea. I didn't have bubble tea really till I started traveling abroad. That
Oh,
shit's good,
wow.
right? Yeah, boy, get in there.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Opening your eyes, bro.
Singapore for the win.
But this BJ Penn situation reminds me a little bit of, and again, we'll finish on this point. Did you ever hear about the Chinese guy, the Chinese MMA fighter, who started fighting all of these old masters and these like Tai Chi guys and these Kung Fu guys?
Oh,
and
he's just swinging.
yeah, he's trying to basically prove that MMA, that these old
I've seen
traditional
that.
martial arts are bullshit,
I've seen that, yeah.
right? And the thing
I've
about
seen clips of it, yeah.
the thing about this guy is apparently the Chinese government just banned his social medias, and they're going pretty hard on him and cutting
Oh.
off his digital footprint and everything
Oh.
because they don't want this guy to expose
Yeah.
all these traditional Chinese
Yeah.
martial arts that have had
He's
thousands
gonna
of years of
kill it,
history.
Thousands of history.
Yeah.
He's gonna kill it.
And here's the
if
thing
you do
about that, right? The first thing is the U.S. already had this renaissance, right?
Yep.
We had the 80s and the 90s where you would have these traditional martial artists who would teach privately in their dojo. Nobody knew what the best martial arts was.
Yep.
So dojo storming started to happen. Then the Brazilians started going to other people's
Other
academies.
schools,
and
yeah.
So we went through this phase, and they started
Yeah,
beating up
yeah.
other people. Jiu-jitsu's the best, and then they
Yeah.
had the UFC where you pit all these styles.
Yeah, yeah.
We've done this experiment already. So
Yeah.
in the West, we know about Muay Thai, boxing,
Yeah.
MMA, and wrestling,
Yeah.
and jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
right? But in China, it's just opening up.
Yeah,
But the-
Taekwondo, they got all the Tai Chi and all the other stuff.
But the thing
yeah.
about this guy that's bad, the reason why he fucked up is because this is a guy who's an MMA fighter. He's big. He's
Yeah,
jacked.
yeah.
He's in like his
Yeah,
20s or
I've seen
whatever.
him, man. I've
and he's
seen him.
fighting like 50-year-old people.
Yeah.
And not only is he fighting them, he's fucking them up.
Oh, he's going ham on
He's
him.
going-
He's just
Yeah.
swinging.
And this
he's
is his
full
mistake,
power
right?
too.
This guy could have been the type of guy to revolutionize martial arts
For sure.
in China. If he had just done it with some tact and some
Yeah.
grace,
Yeah.
if he had done what Matt Serra did in that video, where he gets this drunk guy who starts talking shit,
Yeah.
he gets on top of him, he mounts him, he pins his arm down.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, do what you want.
Yeah.
You can throw a temper tantrum if you want.
Yeah.
You're not going to fucking
Yeah.
move.
He's like, "Are you done?
Yeah,
Are
you done? Whenever
Yeah,
you're done,
like-
I'll let you go.
Yeah.
He's embarrassing him by using jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And he's showing that, like, listen, if I'm going to fight some 50-year-old kung fu master grandpa that thinks his kung fu is going to work on me, I'm going to do what you did to the guy in the street fight. I'm going to take you down. I'm going to take your back. You're
Yeah.
probably going to go spaz out. I'm going to control you. I'm going to be like this.
Yeah,
and I'm
just
like, okay,
light stuff.
Do,
You
do
don't
what
have
you
to
can.
hurt the
Yes,
person,
I
you
don't
know?
have to fuck you up, break your jaw, kick you in the head. Just be okay, let's see if it works. And then he
Huh.
freaks out, put him in a little choke stand. Okay, let's try again.
Yeah.
Throw whatever you want at me,
Yeah.
and I'm just going to take you down. I'm going to disable you. That shock factor
Yeah.
is going to be so much more. And at the same time, you're not fucking ruining somebody. You're not ruining some 50-year-old
Yeah.
dude who's been
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
martial arts his whole life that just doesn't know.
Yeah.
So if he had just had a little bit of grace, like
Yeah.
with the guy you got in with your street fight, if he's not trying to fuck these people up, if he's just like, look, I
Yeah.
can use 10% of my energy
Yeah.
and completely disable you with your 30 years of kung fu or fucking whatever martial
Yeah,
art
yeah.
you're doing, right?
I mean, being a martial artist, you want to enter a fight, not getting hurt, or you hurt your opponent. You know, I mean, yeah, we get, you're trying to, take each other out, but at the same time, you want to, like, that's why there's a technique to it. That's why there's skill to it. That's why you got tap. But entering a martial arts school like that, and you're trying to fuck somebody up,
Some
with,
old dude who's
with everything,
Yeah.
that's like, it's gonna sort of make you look bad.
yeah.
Do you think he's actually doing that to like just finish the fight quick instead of?
No, he's just like, I'm gonna
He's
show
just
you.
bullying,
I'm
pretty
gonna
much.
show you. Yeah, because listen, dude. Imagine a 50-year-old kung fu
Oh,
black
man.
belt.
Ah.
Imagine just throwing a full power Muay Thai head kick at that guy. Like, what are you doing?
Dude,
What
it doesn't
are you
take
doing?
much. Doesn't take
the
not
guys are
much.
like 50 years old,
Yeah, it
and
does
this is
not
like
take much,
a
man.
20-something-year-old jacked. Like the guy
Yeah.
clearly lifts weights, knows how to
Yeah.
do MMA striking, knows jujitsu. It's like, dude, it's just
Yeah,
tactless.
that's actually gonna make the MMA reputation look bad. I would
Yes,
say
exactly. It's
And-
going to
and I would
slow the progression down of what
Yeah.
you're trying to do.
say- Yeah, instead of actually making the situation better, you're actually sort of making it
Yeah,
sort
because
of
let me
worse
tell you
for
right now-
everybody else.
Because let me tell you
You
right
know?
now, this Chinese dude, if he went to some gyms in America or he went to some gyms in Brazil,
Oh,
or in,
gets
people
hurt.
could do that to him.
Yeah,
People
he
could do that
get
to him,
hurt.
and then he would quickly realize that the shoe
Yeah.
was on the other foot. Now, if people were going to do that to them, he would probably wish that, like, same thing. They just
Yeah.
disable you quickly. They tap you out. They teach you that, like, there's ways to do this
Yeah.
that don't require so much violence.
Yeah.
Especially, like, I'm going to give you fucking brain damage to prove a point.
Yeah.
Like, there's ways that I can prove my point without fucking making you talk funny.
Hey,
You
so
know?
just to let everybody know, we're not all like that. We're not all martial artists like that. Not all MMA fighters are like that. We're actually usually some of the best martial artists, the craziest athletes, fighters, like in reacting with all the UFC fighters in the gym, you'd expect these guys to be nuts, but they're actually one of the genuine people on planet Earth, So I mean, of course you'll have a bad seed every now and then, but that's just, us being human. But we're not all like that. But you were saying, bro.
Yeah, that's it, man. I mean, I think that's a great point. And the goal, especially in situations like that, and we had this women's self-defense seminar.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that, like, if you're a woman, I can't teach you enough martial arts in an hour and a half to ever really
Yeah.
protect you.
Yeah.
I can just give you concepts, and you can
Yeah.
decide if those are interesting and if it's something you'd want to pursue further.
Yeah.
But if you're a woman and you're attacked and you've done 1 hour of self-defense, that I can't realistically help you in
Yeah.
that situation. I can just expose you to the information. But the idea ultimately is, and this is true if you're in a conflict, but particularly before, is you got to de-escalate the situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guys, if you want to do self-defense, if you want to know how to not get hurt, you use your language, you use your words, and
Yeah.
you de-escalate the situation.
Oh, yeah.
If the situation gets out of hand,
Yeah, that's when
you
you
use
step
your
in.
jujitsu
Use your
and you
jujitsu.
de-escalate with that. Same
Yeah.
thing. I'm gonna mount you. I'll pin your arms over your head.
Yeah.
You can throw a temper tantrum like a 5-year-old. You're not getting out. You're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And that will very quickly make you realize
Yeah.
that there's nothing you can do. You're fucked. I could hurt you if I want to, but I'm not going to. And then that is the ultimate step for self-defense, right? Because listen, if we're both in a street fight, we're drunk at a bar, I do what that guy did, knocked out BJ Penn, he hits his, and it's some regular dude, he hits his fucking head on the curb and dies, guess what? Your ass is going to jail for murder.
Yeah.
Even if it's an accident.
Yeah.
There's no accidental deaths in jiu-jitsu.
No.
None.
No.
But once you start swinging punches,
Oh,
BJ
yeah.
Penn, one of the greatest of all time, gets knocked out by some fucking nobody in a bar fight.
Yeah.
That won't happen if you use your jiu-jitsu. So for self-defense, people, if you're police officers like we were talking earlier,
Yeah.
get on that jiu-jitsu. man.
Just
That's the
just be
secret.
aware, like he was saying, de-escalate this situation just verbally, You don't have to yo, back the fuck off, You could, like in that video actually, if I could show the video, the guy is just cursing, doing all that
Well,
shit.
link it on your
And he's
social media and shit, and then people, if they watch the video, maybe they can
It's
follow.
not as like it needs some lighting and all that, because like videos like moving and all that. But I knew something was just gonna go fucking bad.
Yeah, you can sense, right?
Yeah, I could just sense it because he really wants it. He was just like, and he kept saying some shit, and I'm just like, yeah, you're right, man, you're right. And I kept giving I try not to give him everything he wants. People like that, I'm sure some people have had situations where shit just goes bad. You want to de-escalate this situation, and you.
Sometimes you have no option, though.
Yeah, you have no option. You gotta do it, but if you can, do it in the safest way, do it, man.
Well, I said last podcast, and I think I'm going to make a shirt that fucking says this. Have you heard this old phrase, walk softly but carry a big stick?
No.
It's so I think correct me, people in the comments or something if I'm wrong, but this is Teddy Roosevelt, the president of the United States, had this phrase, which is what he described the U.S. military like, which is to walk softly and carry a big stick.
Yeah.
And what it means is you speak quietly. You don't brag. You
Yeah.
walk softly with gentle,
Yeah.
right? You're gentle, but you carry a big stick.
Yeah.
So you don't talk shit, but if shit gets out of hand, you're fucking ready for that, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to describe jiu-jitsu. You walk softly, you're peaceful.
Yeah.
But if shit gets out of hand,
Yeah.
you have a big stick to deal with it. And I think that's that's the ultimate goal of jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
right? It's just be humble like that. But if the situation comes upon you, then you need to be able to deal with it.
If you gotta use that jiu-jitsu, man, use it. Use it, you know. Like I don't know. I have to see that PJ Penn video, man.
Yeah, I'll show you as soon as we're
So
done.
he just put his hands down and
Yep.
the
Boom,
guy swung.
clock with a short left hook, knocked out
Oh
cold.
man, that's fucking terrible.
Yeah.
That is terrible. And PJ, man, I love PJ, man.
Yeah.
You know, especially like back in the old
But
days.
he's
man.
having a rough spot, couple bar
Yeah,
fights.
man.
His wife was talking
Yeah.
about him doing
his
a bunch
last
of
fight was Ryan Hall, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Got
yeah.
heel hook there. No, he fought. Who did he fight after that? I think he fought someone else and lost.
Mickey?
No. It
No,
was Clay Guida. I think he just lost to Clay Guida.
Oh man.
But anyway, we're gonna wrap up the podcast here, guys, on that sad BJ Penn note. But guys, if you're training, please feel free to come down. Stronghold MMA got classes all the
Sure.
time. You can find me on the social media, Lucas Leisure on Facebook, Instagram, and then you can follow the gym at SG Stronghold on Instagram. Ali, give them your details, dude.
Follow me on Instagram, Prince Alibaba, MMA.
That's racist.
I actually got that name in high school from a friend of mine. Yeah, shout out to my gym back home, my coaches, Mike DeRoser, Chris Ballard. Honestly, I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for them. You know, they taught me everything from 0 to 100.
And I should say that you're one
You
of
know?
the Jiu-Jitsu Brotherhood
Yep,
boys, too. That's how
yep.
we got
Shout
the
out
hook
to
up,
Nick
too.
as well.
Shout out to you, Nick. Gonna meet you soon.
For sure. Yeah, thanks a lot, guys, and shout out to people at TriStar making me better every single time I go, man. Each time I go, I'm learning something, you know. Even though like sometimes I'll probably get totaled, but I'm learning something every time I go, and I'm thankful for everybody around here and everybody I encounter, you know. So
All right,
thank
my
you,
dude.
guys.
Stronghold Podcast, episode 4 in the books. Thanks,
Thank
my
you,
dude.
brother.
I appreciate it. All right, catch you later,
Cheers.
guys.